Thank you. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum weekly talk show. Today is Sunday, December 8, 2018. And the local time is 5 p.m. Central Minnesota time. My name is Kafumba Kruma, and as always, I'm your happy moderator, or the host for this program. My guests tonight are Honorable George Melvin Johnson, and the former Managing Director of Liberia Airports Authority, U.S. Air Force Major Corkrum. The pair and other co-defendants were recently accused and subsequently indicted by the Liberian government through a special grand jury of Musrado County for the crimes of economic sabotage, theft of property, criminal conspiracy, and misapplication of entrusted property. More specifically, former Liberia Airport Authority Managing Director Ms. Corkrum is charged of allegedly transferring the amount of U.S. $125,000 on December 10, 2012, and transfer another $125,000 on December 13, 2012, and $19,000 on December 18 of the same year, 2012, totaling to the sum of $269,000 into the account belonging to a diaspora consulting firm with Bank of America. All of these, the government alleges, were done without appropriate authorization to do so. By the way, the account to which the money was transferred to, the account number is in my possession. It's in the possession of the Liberian Diaspora Forum, including several email exchanges, going between a lot of the participants, associated with the issue discussing, including the controller of LBDI, where the money was transferred out of, and the representative of the Diaspora Consulting Firm Company email, including that, is also in our possession. So we know that where we come from, Liberia, and Liberian communities everywhere around the world are very notorious for rumors manufacturing, and so what we've decided to do, due to the sensitive nature of this show, we've decided to focus to that show on the facts, and the facts are obviously charges that were brought on the couple. In this case, Honorable George Melvin Johnson and Major Corkrum. So we're going to do all we can to make sure we stay on focus here, so that we can get the most out of it. Now, the issues at hand, since this show, as a moderator of this show, I was privileged to have reviewed some documents before now. The issues that we will be looking to specifically here are the government alleges that $269,000 was transferred to this diaspora consulting firm. And the defenders, at least some of the defenders, co-defenders, in this case, the former managing director, Corkrum, and George Melvin Johnson, from documents obtained, indicates that only $144,000 was actually transferred, and that this was done so with due approval from higher up the executive. All right. And the other thing we'll be discussing tonight will be the existence of a diaspora firm. Is there in fact a company, that is under this name, Diaspora Consulting Firm? Is there one or not? And then whether the work for which the money was transferred was actually performed. Because I found that a bit contradictory as I read through the documents. On one hand, it is said that the money was paid without services being rendered. On the other hand, it's argued that the company does not even exist. So that's also another issue we'll be looking at. Now, George Melvin Johnson will be our principal discussant tonight. And since the arrangement to bring the couple on this show was greatly aided by Senor Yeule and Cecilia Hippie, all of whom are patriotic Liberia. If you've been on this show before, you will notice that every time people have worked hard to bring guests here, with well-defined interests, we've allowed them to be on the side, on the side of their guests, and so those two people line will be open as well as the guests, so that anytime, if need be, they will jump in to address some concerns if that becomes necessary, only if it becomes necessary. All right? So with that said, I'm going to begin the show. As you know, I like to begin the show sometime is with introduction remark, and I will ask Judge Melvin Johnson, in this case, to do his opening remark, and then shortly after that, I do have a first question, and then from there we'll begin entertaining your question, comments, and our concern. So again, Judge Johnson, I'm honored and privileged to have you on this show, so the floor is all yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. Let me first say that praise the Lord. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Brother Kafumba, thank you. Brother Sayon, Sister Cecilia, and the rest of the staff, thank you for the opportunity to be here. You say the privilege is yours, but indeed the privilege is mine. As Africa's oldest independent nation, we look, many people will agree, even worse than the youngest. And many of us agree that it is because of issues such as these and mismanagement, as well as other issues that have caused us to stray behind. And so this is an issue that is very important, and it's an issue that I'm privileged to be a part of and privileged to discuss on the show and let the truth come out so that the people may be aware. I know that you will mention this, but let me also mention this in my introductory remarks, that anybody who's listening, the documents that Kafumba has mentioned earlier, that if you're interested, he will give you the email address so that those documents can be emailed to you so that you can review them for yourself and ask questions of the various parties as appropriate. It is important that we all take interest in this issue and other issues of national concern, because in reality, at the end of the day, Liberia is the only country that we have. So again, thank you. And I look forward to bringing out the truth.
Thank you, Judge Johnson. Thank you. And speaking of the documents, I'm glad you pointed that out. I kind of skipped my mind quickly. So there are so many of you on here, and I think it helps a lot if we have access to some of the documents. And I have had time to go through some of them, and boy, are they revealing. So if you are interested in getting a copy of any of those documents, all you need to do is to test the Word document email the Word document to the Liberian Diaspora Forum at yahoo.com. And I have the documents will come through there, and I'll forward them to your email address. So throughout the show, I hope we'll remember to announce that. So with that said, let me begin. I got a question. By the way, if you have any question, comment, or concern, even though the judge just did his introductory remark, but I know this issue is so out there. We all know about it. Not very many of us are innocent about the issue in the Liberian community. So if you came on the show with preconceived question, by all means, you might want to dial *61. Some have done so already, and I will get to you shortly here. I'll get to your questions. But let me begin by asking Judge Melvin Johnson here. Judge Johnson, many of us have come to know you just recently, and until very recently, I honestly had no idea who you are, or even your fiancee, Miss Ellie Corkrum. I had no idea who she was. Now we've come to know not only are you very patriotic and qualified Liberians, but also we've come to learn about you through the media, and most of what we've read, especially coming from the government, and have not been quite decent. I don't know if it's a decent portrait of you, but to me, there's been a lot of negative, information out there. So I'd like to begin, this show by asking you, who is Judge Melvin Johnson? Do you at least try, to post some, face to the names that we've been reading about over the last several months now? Can you tell the listening audience who you truly are? And if so, and additionally, could you also speak a little bit about your fiancée, if you could, who she is and who are you? So so we get to know you as person and not just some names, on Front Page Africa or somewhere else.
Yes, let me start first with Ellen Corkrum. I'm a little bit more comfortable talking about her than I am myself. Ellen Corkrum is an amazing woman. Ellen Corkrum is an example of what God can do. Ellen Corkrum is one of those people that when you look at from the beginning, you can say, I bet this child may not be able to do this, may not be able to do that, but she's just a blessing. She is somebody, a Liberian, that spent, I believe, 10 years at St. Teresa Convent, receiving her primary and secondary education there. She migrated here to the U.S., and she graduated from the University of Minnesota. And with a bachelor's degree, she went on to graduate from MIT with a master's degree. She went on further to graduate from Harvard with a second master's degree. She had served honorably in the U.S. military for about 20 years or so. She became, as far as we know, Africa's first female military pilot. And she's at the point where she's now qualified and has been qualified for a while, I should say, for many years actually, to train pilots. All of this, I don't know how she did it, but miraculously God allowed all of this to happen, and she's just at the tender age of 41. She's somebody that we all can be and should be extremely, extremely proud of. I can tell you from personal encounters with her, particularly, in America, you can kind of tell who somebody is when they are among their peers and their colleagues or people higher than them. And some of the programs I'm recollecting now that I've attended with Ellen Corkrum, to see the kind of honor and the kind of respect that high-ranking officers here in the U.S. give Ellen Corkrum, to walk in on some of the conversations and the things they talk about her and the training, the kind of excellence that she has exhibited. It literally put goosebumps on my body to know that Liberians are doing these things. Too often we hear so much negativity about each other, and it's really, really just a breath of fresh air to know somebody like an Ellen Corkrum. She's truly a blessing. She's truly somebody that Liberia can and should be very, very proud of. Regarding myself, my story is somewhat like an underdog story. I grew up in the St. Lakbasi area. Come from a relatively poor family, very humble beginnings. I went to schools where we didn't have sometimes enough chairs. I did primary education at a couple of schools, primarily in the Lakbasi area. I left from there. I went on to demonstration right there off of Camp Johnson Road, Clay Street area, with the very famous Rebecca Wilson, one of our great educators. She had a tremendous impact on my life. Thereafter, I left. I went to Rick's Institute in Virginia, where I spent several years, great formidable years for me. And thereafter, I was fortunate to leave and come on to the United States. I say I'm an underdog story because the things that God has done in my life, I heard somebody say that even if I had 10,000 tongues, it would not be sufficient to say thank you. During the war that we're all familiar with from different angles in Liberia, for various reasons, I found myself homeless in America. I graduated high school in America here with honors at age 16. I was actually on track to graduate at 15, but for some reasons I was held back. I graduated at 16, and I was homeless for a period. God worked miracles in my life. It took me 10 years to get a green card in America. So to those people who are listening, who are struggling or have been struggling, I can really identify with you. When you hear about Just Johnson, this is not somebody that fell from the sky or came from a rich family. And I'm not saying coming from a rich family is bad, but for those of you who may feel that God has forgotten about you, I'm a testament that God has not forgotten. But I went on. I spent too many years. I spent about 8 years at Georgia State University here. I spent some time in school in Houston, Texas. And 2000, I graduated with a doctorate degree in jurisprudence, law. And since that time, I started practicing. I practiced with some, they're called big firms in the downtown Atlanta area. And then thereafter, I received what I thought and still think was a calling to start my own practice and to begin serving our people. And I've been serving here in the metro Atlanta area for about a decade now. I don't think anybody, if you know anybody in the metro Atlanta area that's been here more than 2 years, if you call the name Melvin Johnson, they likely have interacted with me or they know me because I've been serving. I've had a passion to do that. After I served as a lawyer for maybe 3, 4, 5 years, if we have time, let me give this testimony. I think this is important that people hear this. I received a call one day. I was at my office. It was an African-American woman, and she said, "Are you Attorney Johnson?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She says, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian. I have 2 homes. I live in one of them. The other home I use as a ministry. I use for shelter. I use to shelter women who have been abused, women who have been battered, women who have been disenfranchised, etc. And I'm using my own resources. I'm not getting any money from the government, but we've run out of resources and we've got some legal issues, and we need a lawyer that will volunteer free of charge. Some of you may or may not know, but student loans are very serious in America. Right. And so when you go through school and you get a doctorate degree in law, you've accumulated a lot of loans to pay back. And so when people tell you to work free, that usually doesn't sound good. But long story short, I met with this woman and I sat her down. When she explained the conditions of these people, I told her, I said, "Ma'am, I'm from Liberia. I share a little bit of my background." I said, "You're looking at a young man who was homeless. God has blessed me. I'm here." And I told her, I said, the Bible says that, and in fact, Christ specifically says, what you do unto the least of them in society, so you have done unto me. I said, so given where I come from, I feel obligated to help these people. Long story short, I volunteered for 2 years serving these poor women. At times, we would have to fight against the state of Georgia. At times, we would have to fight against the county where I live, the city, etc. And every one of those fights, God gave us favor. We started winning those cases. The lady who ran the orphanage, she started becoming more and more and more famous. And within a short period of time, people started telling her that she should consider running for public office. And so I remember we had a conversation at some point, and I encouraged her to do so. Long story short, we got some friends. We rallied. We sort of formed a campaign of sort for this woman. She ran. She won. She became mayor. At the time she became mayor, it was the same time President Johnson Sirleaf had won the candidacy for the first term. And I was privileged to go back for that inauguration. And so the new mayor and the new president's inauguration conflicted. And so I had a meeting before I left, and I told the mayor, I said, I'm so sorry. I really want to be at your inauguration. She expressed how she had me on the program, and she had wanted to say thank you and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I told her thank you, but no thank you. I'm going home to attend the inauguration. I had never been to a presidential inauguration, so I was leaving. And before I left, she says, I have some power now. Can I appoint you as city manager to, can I give you some job? And I said, no, I'm fine. This is where God would have me be for this season. I said, I'm going home. I said, but if something comes up in my area, then let me know. I left. I went home. I enjoyed the inauguration. I came back. I resumed my normal life. About 6-7 months passed, and I got a phone call on this fateful Friday. It was about 4:30ish on a Friday. We all know when you're working, and 5 o'clock is usually the time you turn off the phone. When you get to about 4:30 on Friday, you're kind of ready to go home. But I got a phone call. I answered the phone. There was a gentleman says, Attorney Johnson. I said, yes, sir. He says, would you hold on for the mayor? And so I held on to the phone, and moments later, the mayor came on, and we exchanged pleasantries, and we sort of got caught up on, what you're doing and what I'm doing. We hadn't talked since we had that dinner before I went to Liberia. And she says, remember the last thing you told me, Attorney Johnson? I said, Mayor, forgive me. I said, I'm so busy that sometimes I don't remember what I told somebody 2 days ago, better yet 6-7 months ago. She said, you told me that if something came up in your area to let you know. She says, and we've had some issues here, and amid some controversy, the judge here has resigned, and that position is open. She said the government here decided that they would hear from 3 candidates, and then they would vote, and they would make a decision and put in a judge, and then thereafter that judge would have to stand on his merit going forward. She says that 2 people, Caucasian people, had put their names down, and she says before a 3rd person could put his name, I put your name down. I said, Mayor, you said what? She said, yes, I put your name down. You told me if something came up, you are a lawyer, you are a jurist, this is related to what you do, therefore I put your name down, so you at least have to come, because if you don't, I could get in trouble. I said, you're kidding me. She's no longer mayor, by the way, so I can tell this publicly. I said, what is it I have to do? She says, well, this is the part. The council meeting is tonight at 6:30 in 2 hours, and it's required that you bring copies of your resumes, disseminate it with the public at large, as well as give copies to the city council members. We will discuss some other city business at the town hall meeting, but then we will deal with the issue of the judge. At that time, it would be expected for each candidate to stand up and explain to the people, to the potential constituency, as well as to the government, why each candidate should be chosen to be the next judge. I said, you're kidding me. She says, no, I'm not kidding. She says, by the way, when you show up, understand that I will be in character, and so just, downplay that you know me and the extent and so forth. I will see you, Attorney Johnson, see you in 2 hours, and she hung up the phone. I remember like yesterday, I sat in the chair. I was 35 years old at the time. I sat in the chair. I said, God, Judge, I said, God, is this something that this lady's trying to embarrass me? Because I've been in America a long time, and I know they don't make people who are 35-year-old judges. I said, God, you mean this is your plan for my life, to be judge in America? I said, God, not only do they not make people 35 years old judges, but this is the South. This jurisdiction has never had a black judge before. I said, and I'm struggling with this. But long story short, the Holy Spirit gave me some courage. I gathered myself. I scrapped up a resume because I had been self-employed for a few years, so I didn't have a resume per se. And I went to the meeting. As expected, some other issues were discussed. City taxes and blah, 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 other business were discussed. And eventually the gavel was hit, and they said, let's get to order. As you recall, we had on the agenda the issue of the judge. We have 3 candidates. We've already passed out their resumes, and we will now hear from candidate number 1. A Caucasian male stood up, and he said what he had to say about the position. And before he took his seat, he turned and kind of looked at me and says, I don't want to pick on the young man, referring to me. He says, but I see that according to the resume he provided, he was born in the year 1972. He says, I graduated from law school in 1971. and I have all these experience and blah, 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 and then he sat down. Normally, my mother and father taught me that when I sit up in such a setting, to sit up erect and upright with my chest out and be proud. But I have to admit to you, when he cut me down as far as my age, I started sinking slowly in my chair. Anyways, the second candidate got up, and he said what he had to say regarding his interest before he took his seat. He said, well, I really didn't plan on mentioning this, but since my colleague did, the young man is 35 years old. I have 5 children, and my youngest child is 37 years old. And again, I started sinking even deeper and deeper in my chair. Eventually, he said some other things that I don't remember because it was sort of getting cloudy for me at that point. And they called me up. So I stood up and I said, praise the Lord. Let me declare without fear or hesitation that God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. I told them, I said, I'm a Christian. I don't say that to say I'm perfect and I don't sin or I don't do wrong. But I say that to say that is what guides me in what I do. I said, so you can expect that you will have a judge here in this city that will do his best based on those principles. Then I went on to talk about some other things about the software they had and ways that they could save money and cut back on the budget, etc. And I said, before I take my seat, I said the 2 candidates before me had mentioned my age and the years they spent in law school and the children. I said, there's no secret, I'm 35. I said, but the last time I heard, we were not here for a geriatrics convention. We were here so that you guys would hear the truth, the facts, and consider who would be the best person to lead this city forward. I said, if you're here looking for monuments, then consider one of these people. But if you want a movement in this city that will take us forward, I am your guy. I said a few other things, and I sat back down. The government people, the city council people that were sitting high up, I think it was about 8 of them or so, I don't remember how many now, they took a recess. They went in the back. They took longer than expected. People started murmuring, and they came back. They hit the gavel. They called the meeting back to order. And they said, ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for taking extended time, but we were deliberating on something. We know that we had posted that today we would hear from the 3 candidates and we would make a decision next Friday. But we wanted an opportunity to review the city's charter, sort of like the Constitution, and to see if we were within our rights. And we've reviewed it. We've decided to make a decision tonight. We're not going to wait till next Friday. We're going to make a decision tonight. In fact, part of the reason we took longer than expected is we've already voted and we've already got a decision. We're ready to announce that decision. And then they turned to me. They said, Mr. Johnson, Attorney Johnson, would you please stand up? And I stood up. And I have to be honest with you that in my somewhat pessimistic mind, when you watch the beauty pageant, you watch the American Idol show, the runner-up is the first person that they call. And so when they told me to stand up, I was pessimistic that I was going to be the runner-up and they were going to say thank you and so forth. Where I grew up in St. Claude-Lac-Bassy, we termed it the Did Well Trophy. So in my pessimistic mind, I thought they would give me the Did Well Trophy. Nevertheless, as God would have it, his favor again was on me. And the city council member proclaimed to the people, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce and present to you in our, I think it was 151 years at the time that the city had been around since it was chartered. But in our 151-year history, our first black judge, Judge Melvin Johnson. And I froze. I couldn't think. The people were cheering. They were clapping. White people were clapping. Black people were clapping. Some black people were screaming. They were calling them to come to order. And I was just standing there frozen. And then I started thinking, I said, look, I called myself Peking. I said, look, Peking, these people will start clapping momentarily, and they would likely ask you to say something. So gather your thoughts so that you don't further embarrass yourself. So I snapped out of it, being frozen, and I started to gather my thoughts. And the minute I started doing that, they stopped clapping. At this point, I was standing with my back to the community. In the town hall meeting, I was facing the council government people. And the spokesman says, Judge Johnson, as you can see, the people are excited. Would you please turn around and address your constituency, the community? So I said, first, before I do that, let me say thank you to all of you for the honor that you bestowed upon me. I said, before I turn around to the constituency, I have something to tell you. I said, well, as I explained to y'all earlier, I have a law practice, and I'm very passionate about defending people. I feel that, this is where God would have me be for this season. And as I mentioned, the software you're using is a little outdated and some of your policies. But long story short, I mentioned that Georgia had a provision in the law whereby if a judge was positioned correctly, that judge could still be a judge as well as practice as a lawyer. I said, if you're willing to work with me to do that, I'm confident that I can still do the job. I said, but the truth is I'm not ready and willing to call all of my clients at this moment and tell them, I'm judge. I'm so sorry. I can't do nothing for you. I said some of these people are facing life in prison. Some of them are facing deportation. Some of them have divorces, child support, all these different life issues. And I'm not willing to just let them go. I say, if you're willing to work with me, I can do that. But if you're not, then with all due respect, I have to decline. And the place was dead silent. They said, all right, well, we've heard what you said. We'll be in recess. So the government officials, they went in the back. Whatever they were doing, I don't know. I sat back in the chair. And behind me, maybe about 4, 5, 6 rows, I still remember like yesterday, were 3 older black African-American women, maybe 60s, 70s. And they started talking about me. They started gossiping about me. I said, black people, some of us can be so, excuse my French, stupid. And I was born here. I grew up in this town. I didn't think I'll see the first black judge. Did not give this one the opportunity to be judge. And he talking about he want to represent people. Those people are probably all criminals anyways, and da-da-da-da-da. And they were just tearing me up. So honestly, as I sat there, what they were saying started to get to me. I started to think, oh, my goodness. Begin, you mean to tell me you've come from Lakwasi, from a poor family, the first person in your family to graduate from college. You were homeless, 10 years without a green card. I mean, God just worked miracles after miracles, and here you are to become the first person to be judged, black person, first African, first Liberian, and you're turning it down. So I'm struggling in my mind with this. And then at that moment, the Holy Spirit came in and assured me that I had done the right thing, that I had been truthful, and to always do what is right in the eyes of God and leave the consequences to Him. Long story short, the city council members came back, and they called the meeting back to order, and they turned to me and they said, Mr. Johnson, would you stand up? I stood up. Now, I quickly recognized that before they left, they called me Judge Johnson. When they now have come back, they call me Mr. Johnson. So again, I don't mind exposing in my pessimistic mind. I thought, oh, my goodness, they were calling me judge. At least if they were still calling me judge, that means I have it. But since they're saying Mr. Johnson, more than likely they have taken the opportunity away from me. I stood up, and the spokesperson says that, we heard what you said. We've had an opportunity to do some due diligence and research everything, and this is what we've decided. We've decided that we don't want you to be the judge, but we are so confident that we want you to be the chief judge. That way, you would be responsible for hiring, firing judges. You will have plenary power and autonomy over the whole system. If you say that you can handle that responsibility and run your law practice, so be it. We will try it and see how it'll work out, but just be sure that you understand that the entire jurisdiction is within your purview and your control, and just make sure it runs right. Now, Mr. Johnson, would you accept? And, of course, I was elated. I accepted. But that was going on 6 years now when that happened. And so when you ask me who I am, I'm a young man from Liberia that God has blessed. I mean, I cannot put it into words, just infinitely, and I still serve as chief judge to this day, as well as I run a law practice. But that's enough about me.
Thank you. That's remarkable. Thank you, Judge Melvin Johnson. At least, hopefully by now we know who Judge Melvin Johnson is, and we also know now who Miss Ellie Corkrum is, versus just seeing the names on a piece of paper. Now, let me.
Brother Kapuma, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you. Let me say that the reason that for me telling that story is to show clearly that when you hear I am a judge, it is not something that I work for. It is not something that I labor for. It is something to everybody listening. God is faithful. God is faithful. Basically, 2 years before that, I set out to prove God, to serve the least among us in society, and God literally gifted me with the position. So somebody out there who may be down and thinking that God has forgotten about you, just remain faithful. Remain faithful doing the right thing. Even when it's difficult, God does not forget. He always rewards the right thing. Sorry, Brother Kafumba.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you. Now, let me take this time to welcome the 517 of you online right now. I want to welcome all of you online. It's an interesting show, and that is Judge Melvin Johnson. All right, and this is the part where you get to ask questions. We all came here because we have doubts, we have questions. And so this part of the show, allows you to dial *61 on your phone. I got some questions of my own, but this is a people-driven show. It's a caller-driven show. Hopefully you've been here before, or you know that. So we invite you to dial *61 on your phone, and your number will come up here, and I'll take your question to the judge. Now, we got some questions lined already, so we'll take our first caller for the night, and then we'll go from there. Now, as always, the rule is no matter how much we disagree, we ask that you be civil, be respectful at all times. That's the only way we can achieve something, all right? So our first caller for the night will be 4322, 4322. Could you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson, 4322. Hello? 4322, are you there? 763, Erica? All right, probably got to come back to that. We've got too many questions within the queue, so. Now, we'll take 8041, 8041. Your name, where you calling from, your question for Judge Johnson. 8041. Hello? Hello? Hold on, please don't tell me that this is coming from my head. 8041, are you there?
Did you get your number or other phone number?
I'm calling the last 4 digits of your number. This is the Minnesota area code 612. The last 4 digits, 8041. Are you on?
What's the number again, please?
8041, 8041. Is that yours?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's me, Hamilton.
All right. Yeah, that happens. That's understandable. So could you please tell us your name, where you're calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson?
Oh, okay. Hey, well, first of all, I want to thank you so much. The judge so immensely. You represented the Liberian community in America, and we're proud of you. Even though your power, when we go into it's a long history. We all have seen history as well. But my question to you, sir, is that do you have an entity that has connection with the issue of adding Corkrum awarding contract to your entity or your establishment in the United States?
Do I have an entity? You said family in the United States? I didn't hear the last part of it.
Do you have an entity, like a company in the United States that is awarded contract by this lady in question?
Okay.
Thank you.
No, I do not have an entity in the United States that Ellen Corkrum or anybody from Liberia, for that matter, has awarded any contracts to. No.
All right. Thank you. Our next call will come from 2095. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 2095. Your name, where you calling from, and your question.
My name is Morris Brown, and I'm, calling from Pennsylvania. I'm calling to ask Judge Johnson. I got, couple of things to ask, but the first one would be asking Judge Johnson, since he does not have an entity or he does not have, a business that was awarded contract with by Ellen Corkrum, how did he get involved into this whole Ellen Corkrum saga?
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's a very good question, my brother. Long story short, I had been going home for maybe about 7 years. I had established a business called Action Foods right there, Painesville, ERW Junction. Action Food was born from a vision to create opportunities for my very large extended family members so that it would create an opportunity for them to work with me, and we would have a business whereby everybody would have an opportunity to do something so that I would not be obligated every month to send 10 digits to everybody in Liberia because the family is extremely large. And Action Food, we imported smoked fish and salt pork and pig feet and pigtails and other pork products and meat products in brine, meaning in salt, because we don't have refrigeration. Action Food was started 2006, 2006, I think. And so I had been going home continuously for that. Additionally, I had adopted an orphanage of 47 children in Liberia. When I say adopted, I don't mean legally, but I fell in love with them. I have 4 children of my own, and I fell in love with these kids, and every time I would go home, I would spend time with them, interact with them, give what I could, bring back trinkets and stuff for them, as well as my family in Liberia. So for those 3 reasons, I had been going home literally every quarter, 3-4 times a year. I've been going back and forth to Liberia in addition to serving and doing the other things here. I went home early October last year, October 6th to be exact. And when I went home, that was when I met Ellen Corkrum for the first time. She had been in Liberia just about a week. And initially when I met her, she was very excited about being in Liberia. As I mentioned, some of her credentials, very outstanding. She's extremely passionate and patriotic about Liberia and serving out people. And when we met, she was excited about being there, long story short, and then the excitement started turning to dismay. I was going back and forth. There was a ton of needs at the airport to do different things that the airport needed. And one of the needs that came about was to have a security audit done and to have a systems audit done. At that time, I was approached by several people there in government and at the airport and on the board. They mentioned they had 2 entities that would be coming from the U.S. to go to Liberia to do this work for the airport, but they had concerns and they had bad experiences with entities people coming from the U.S. to do work whereby the people would rightfully demand part payment when they sent the money to these people. Sometimes they would never hear from or see these people again, and they would not pursue the people, and they would not have a recourse. So the idea came up that since I am a lawyer in the U.S. and lawyers have what we call IOTA account, which is a fancy name for a trust account, whereby we handle these kind of transactions all the time, the idea came up that the funds, the initial down payment for these two entities in the U.S. should be sent to my IOTA account and then forwarded to both of these companies, so that if the companies did such as the other companies had done, they don't show up, then I would be able to pursue these companies here in the U.S. because the transaction would have occurred here in the U.S. I said I would do it. That's not a problem. However, it has to be in writing that I was authorized to do it. The board of directors for the airport, I believe about 8 people, Eugene Angwe, the Minister of Transport, included, Musa Bility, an Ambassador Dunn. He used to be the chief of protocol for the president. All of them on the board, they approved that I would do this. And so when the company, when they did whatever they had to with these companies, they approved me to be what they call legal advisor to the airport. And so when it was time for these companies to come, I gave them my account information, my trust account information. They forwarded the money from Liberia to the trust account. Then I gave the bank here in the U.S. instructions. The bank here distributed the money to both of the companies. Both of the companies received the money. Both companies came to Liberia. They did the work. They prepared the reports, and they left. And I think one of the companies stayed and did additional work or so forth. But that was how I got involved in the whole process.
Okay, thank you. Now, folks, you probably noticed that I'm taking one question at a time. That's because we have huge number of callers. But by all means, if you have a follow-up question, please don't hesitate to dial *61 on your phone. You can always come back, and we will be glad to take your follow-up questions. So moving on, we'll take, let's try this 4322 again. 4322-763 area code 4322. Your name, where you calling from, your question for the judge. 4322. 4322. All right, I'll pick this out of my queue here. There's too many people watching too. All right, 5500 5500. Your name, where you calling from, your question for Judge Johnson. 5500.
This is Jabate from New York. Judge Johnson, are you an American citizen or Liberian citizen? Question, is your fiancé still an American citizen or Liberian citizen?
Thank you.
Mr. Jabate, I think it's a good question. However, I think it's a personal question. The government of Liberia is charging us with creating this fake company. They're not charging us with without citizenship. And so, as much as I respect the question, I respect you. I'm not going to get into my citizenship, my tribe, my family, my personal life, etc. What I prefer that we do is to discuss the public issue of whether or not we took this money that we're accused of, whether or not this company that they're saying is fake, that was made up, that did not exist. Those are the issues that I'm asking you and the rest of the listening audience respectfully that we stay within that context.
Okay, thank you. Before I take another call, Judge Johnson, let me picking up on the last caller's the last question that was asked, not this very last one, the one before that. I want as to how you got involved, the trust account, the money was transferred. So how much are we talking about? Is it are we talking of the $269,000 that was transferred into your trust account, or?
No. I don't even remember what the amount was, but the amount that was transferred was not the full contract amount. It wasn't even half. It was, I think it was maybe a fourth of whatever. I don't remember the amount now, but I should note that I've not been charged with that. I've not been charged with any wrongdoing as far as that transaction. It's been mentioned, and so I answered it. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So our next caller will be 2318. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin. 2318.
Thanks. This is Alexander Walker. I'm calling from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to Judge Johnson. Personally, mine would be a comment, but it would have to do with the topic in question.
Okay.
I would just like to say, Mr. Johnson or Judge Johnson, being someone who currently wears the uniform, I was fortunate to have met at the time Major Corkrum doing one of our SRP process way back in Minnesota, and I was very impressed seeing a Liberian to have ascended to that level. And what I want to say is I just want to say for the general public to understand that to achieve what Madam Corkrum had achieved with the United States military require a lot of trust. There is something called top secret clearance that you must hold to have those kind of positions. I myself have to maintain my clearance. And I know what I got to do on a day-to-day basis in Minnesota to maintain my clearance. Most of the time I go in gathering, people ask me if I'm here or I have a travel or not, because you hardly see me to those places that will lead me in trouble. So what I'm trying to say here is I strongly believe this woman is a very trusted woman, and to have heard what happened in Liberia, I have been trying to unravel what really had gone wrong. And I would just like to tell the Liberian people in another sense, I don't know her, she doesn't know me, she cannot even remember me, but the character of person in question here is I personally, as someone who wears a uniform, I can say her character is not one that will reflect what is going on and what is in the media.
Thank you.
And Mr. Johnson, all I would like to tell you, the only problem I got with what's going on here, and I would say it openly, is that I was just a little bit disappointed with the Chris Massacre part of the tape, especially if he was helping you to leave the country. I just think that, his power should have been blown. But I wish you all luck. Tell ma'am that there are Liberians out here that believe in her and that we are praying for her. And at some point, the Liberian people will get the true story. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may respond, if I may respond to that, to Mr. Walker, he raised a very interesting point that I should have mentioned. All the stuff that's going on in Liberia, I think it's important for people to note that by God's grace, you're talking about a United States judge. You're talking about a United States chief judge for going on 6 years. I think those of us in America, I think we have some sense of the level of scrutiny that goes on in America. I think we have some understanding of the high level of expectation that goes on in America. I can tell you guys without revealing much that the level of scrutiny that Ellen Corkrum and myself have received here in the U.S. is nothing compared to what is in Liberia. And the level of scrutiny here, as you may know, is not just they say and she say and that say and they say and he say, she say, but it's a level of scrutiny that requires high level of documentation. And so even if you don't know us and you're skeptical as to whether we created this fake company, just reflect on the people that you're talking about in the country that you're talking about. And just keep in mind that America will not sit by and allow its chief judge, allow a high-ranking military officer to just do these things and walk around and be flaunting and laughing and carrying on. I think we all can somewhat agree this is not the normal operation of the United States of America. Regarding the Chris Massacre issue, Mr. Walker and everybody else, I definitely understand what you mean. Chris Massacre did not do us any harm. If there was a way that we could have honestly told the public, told the world that this president, because we caught her in the midst of corruption on recordings, some of which we released, many more to be released. If there was a way to tell the world that this is what happened, and therefore she ordered us to be captured, not to leave, that the house, the electricity was turned off, the water was turned off, we were threatened, we had to escape for our lives. If there was a way to tell that story and be believed without revealing the recording of Chris Massaquoi, we would have done that. Additionally, I think we all should, number one, hail Mr. Massaquoi for being courageous and standing up for the right thing. But also, I want to beckon all of you to look at this in the context of national interest. There are times where the interest of the sovereignty has to be upheld higher than the interest of an individual. I'm not saying that it's okay to do bad to people who have done wrong to you, but we felt that we had no choice. We felt the truth needed to come out as to what happened so people would know. And we felt that if it was just Judge Johnson and Ellen Corkrum holding a microphone on the radio and saying, no, we didn't do it, the president ordered us captured, they chased us, they did all these things, we felt nobody would have believed us. So we felt we had no choice but to reveal that. But again, Chris Massaquoi should be hailed for being courageous and doing the right thing when it counted.
Okay. Thank you. If you're just joining us, folks, I'd like to welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show. We have with us Judge Melvin Johnson, the fiancee of former Managing Director for Liberia Airport Authority, Ms. Ellen Corkrum. They are here discussing the alleged $269,000 that was wired over here to a diaspora consulting firm. So if you have any question, comment, or concern, by all means, please dial *61. We'll take your questions over to the judge, and he will provide you an answer. Moving on, let's take our next caller, 5192. By the way, Judge, I think you just answered one of my own questions while you were answering that last question with regard to many more tapes to come out. The only other addition I had to it was, is there a way, can we know, would you be willing to say the next batch of recordings that will come out, who would those be off, or is that something that can be discussed, or we got to wait till we hear?
Yeah, well, I'm not at liberty to tell you your preview if that's what you're asking or what you will hear, but you will continue to hear consistently what you've been hearing as far as the corruption going on in Liberia. You will continue to hear that two young people, relatively young people, decided courageously that enough is enough, that weighing all the risks to our lives, weighing all the risks to our children, weighing all the risks to our family, our careers, etc., that if we have to be the sacrificial lamb that will uproot this thing and bring an end to it so Liberia can move forward in the right direction, if we have to be the sacrificial lamb for the rest of our people, somebody at some point had to do it. Somebody has to do it. We cannot just continue to talk about our displeasure with corruption and do nothing. When you keep doing what you have been doing, you will keep getting what you have been getting. To keep doing what you have been doing and expect differently is a definition of insanity. And so those are, those are some of the recordings that you can expect to hear forthcoming.
Okay, thank you. Let's take our next caller, 5192. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 5192.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Dola. I'm calling from Broken Park, Minnesota. I just want to ask the judge. The only thing I'm hearing you say here is that people that help you to leave Liberia, and people that you interacted with, people that were on your side, those are the people that you recorded. What are people that were beyond you to do something to you? We didn't hear anything. So people that were nice to you, those are the people that you went after while you did that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brother Muhammad, I was only responding to the previous caller's question about Chris Massaquoi, and Chris Massaquoi was somebody that helped us in many ways for us to leave Liberia with our lives. I wasn't speaking to the other recordings. If you haven't been following the story, if you go on, for instance, Front Page Africa, there are recordings there of the president of Liberia. There are recordings there of the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs. There's also recordings there of Brani Samukai. Brani Samukai, again, was somebody that spelled out the plot, the government plot against us. He spelled it out. He explained clearly how he had spoken to Amara Kone, Judy Moore, Edward McLean, Musa Ability, and how all of them told him that they can put their heads on chopping boards, that we did nothing wrong. It's just that they surmised that we would not play the corruption game, and so they were plotting to get rid of us. And so, Brother Muhammad, if you understood that I only recorded people that helped me, that's a misunderstanding. The whole purpose of the recording was to uproot the corruption, the wrongdoing, these things that keep our nation stagnant, and instead of us going forward, these things that are bringing us backwards. That was the whole purpose of the recordings. And so, no, we did not just record people that helped us. We definitely recorded the people that plotted against us. Some of the recordings we've released, and many more are to come.
You're just going to say that many more to come, so who knows? We could hear somebody. Anyway, let's keep going on. We'll take 2212-2212. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 2212-2212.
Yeah, hello?
Hello.
Yes, my name is Obi, and I'm calling from Texas.
Okay.
Good evening, George.
Brother Obi, good evening. I went to school in Texas, so I have a particular affinity for Texas, in H-Town in Houston.
Thank you. I've been following you, especially not on the situation with the RIA, but I've personally taken my time to Google you and to read a little bit about you. And I stumbled upon something that was very interesting to me, and that was something about John Lewis's
Obi?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Let me interject for a second here. I don't know if you were on the show from the beginning. Obviously, there are a lot of things, a lot of people have researched, there are a lot of rumors, but for the purpose of this show, we decided to keep this show focused on the corruption allegation, the $269,000 that was allegedly transferred here to a Diaspora consulting firm. And so, if you will, I would appreciate if you have any question relating to that. And it is my understanding that the judge and Ms. Ellie Corkrum will make many more appearances on many other shows in the future where they will address some of the other concerns. But tonight, we are out to discuss just the corruption allegation. Is that what your question is about?
Well, it might be linked to that, but because I was going to ask him, because his name is up for in the horizon for nomination to the judge to the Chief Justice position if John Lewis left. But that's what I wanted to ask him, even though he told if you're okay with that, I can ask him that.
All right, quickly, yeah. Put that through quickly there, yeah.
All right.
All right, George. So in that case, I think the journalist, your name came up, and or somebody asked you, one of the journalists asked you, and you said there was no comment because there was some opposition in the background, people saying that you never lived in Liberia for more than 5 years or whatever. And I want to know if you mind elaborating on that a little, if you are, because your name is up. I think you have been accused of something about the RIA saga. Okay, with that, do you mind, if you are chosen by President Salif to go and serve over there as a judge in Liberia, will you relinquish your judgeship in the United States, specifically in Lithonia, Georgia, and then go and serve over there while your name is up for corruption or for some allegation? Will you do that?
Well, first of all, to my knowledge, I've not had any discussions with anybody, nor have I expressed any interest in a Chief Justice position or any specified position in Liberia. The only interaction that I have had with Johnny Lewis was a good interaction, very interesting interaction, was several years ago. the Liberian government, as well as Emory University, which is a local university here in Georgia, had an agreement to bring forth the Liberian Chief Justice and his staff to the U.S. for training. And pursuant to that, being a judge, there's a colleague who is also a judge that is a professor at Emory. He was part of that program. He was to help chaperone, if you will, the program. And so when he learned that he was going to be entertaining the high delegation from Liberia, and knowing how a proud Liberian I am, because that's all I talk about with my colleagues, some of them, that is, he called me and says, Judge Johnson, I think this is something you should take over. I think you should run this program because, I'm a little nervous, et cetera. Long story short, I checked my schedule, and I was in charge of the training and chaperoning Johnny Lewis, I think it's bailiff, the chief clerk of the Superior Court. I introduced him to our chief of police, the sheriff. I took him downtown to the Georgia Supreme Court. We met with Justice Sear, who was Chief Justice at the time. We interacted. That was for several days, and they left and went back to Liberia at that time. And subsequently, we did not talk about me replacing him or taking his position. And again, I've not expressed any such interest about any specified position. Regarding whether I would go home and serve, if Ellen Johnson Sirleaf called, as much as I bleed Liberian, as much as I bleed service, and it's in my pedigree and my DNA, from what I know about President Johnson Sirleaf, I would not, because the person that God has formed and fashioned me to being clearly conflicts with the kind of corrupt leadership style that goes on in Liberia, and it would only mean more trouble, as it has meant more trouble, and that's the reason I'm on the show. Liberia, unfortunately, has a culture with this government that when you enter the government, you either play the game that is there or they will get rid of you. And unfortunately for them, before they got rid of us, we were able to get these recordings to expose the game that they were playing at the expense of our poor people.
Okay, thank you. Let me also welcome our international callers, because there are quite a few callers, Liberian callers here. Lone Star number and Celcon number 7777 and 888. So it goes to you as well, the Liberian callers. If you have any question, comment, or concern, just dial *61. We will open up your line. Let's take our next call from 0853. Could you please tell us your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson? 0853.
Oh, thank you very much. I decided to be a listener, but it's a pleasure. At least I can.
What's your name? Where you calling from?
Sorry, my name is Lama Colley. I'm calling from the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to come on your show and to talk to the Honorable Melvin Johnson. I don't know what I'm right. Counselor or Judge, we have a wide range of things we have talked about. But I hear you and see how much you have done so far as exposing corruption in Liberia by way of your recordings and whatnot. All I'm more concerned about is whether we're intentional or not. And if you want to be clean, you have to stay clean. But I can see that you are already insulated by the moderator of this show to restrict certain questions. Mr. Johnson, if you're clean, you should be clean. There's nothing to hide.
Hello? 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 All right. We lost that caller. Well, please come back again. Please come back. That's *61 if you get back on. We'll take our next caller, and that will come from 5741, 5741. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 5741.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hello?
Yeah, hello? Yeah, you on. What's your name? Where you calling from and your question?
Oh, I'm Corkrum calling from New York.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Job Johnson, for coming on the show. My question to you is, you guys been around in Liberia for a little while, and then all the recordings you guys have, it is a recent recording when you guys were tracked down, or you guys did it before the government could track you down? That's my question.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the caller from New York, that's a good question. Let me take a few seconds and sort of lay some foundation as to what led us to start recording. When the board of directors authorized me to serve as legal advisor to LAA for what I mentioned before, it allowed me to work closely with Ellen Corkrum. Immediately, we determined and decided that some measures needed to be taken, mostly her, but we, because I was involved, not as involved as she was. At the airport, there is a gas station that is purposed to fuel the airport vehicles, the fleet equipment, etc. What we discovered within the first few weeks of interacting there is that that was a major source of theft by the powers that be to put money and other benefits in their pockets and their special people. So immediately, Ellen Corkrum and I instituted a system, a login system, whereby going forward, that gas station, anybody getting gas would be required to log the make, year, model of the vehicle, and more importantly, the mileage. Additionally, the gas station attendant as well as the recipient employee would have to sign that paperwork, that log paperwork. And that log paperwork had to be on Ellen Corkrum's desk, 9 a.m. Monday morning, every Monday. No ifs, no ands, no buts, or else somebody's head would roll, so to speak. Somebody would be in trouble. That stopped a lot of the theft that was going on. That angered a lot of people very early. Another example is at the gas station, at the airport, there's a VIP lounge, which is purposed to refresh VIP guests to and fro Liberia. That lounge provides drinks and refreshments at no cost to the VIP guests. We quickly discovered that that lounge was also a major source of theft going on at the airport. When we audited that lounge, we realized that in order for the inventories that were being ordered and paid for by the airport, in order for those inventory to have been correct, each guest sitting in the lounge would have had to consume somewhere around 20 bottles of Heineken, 18 bottles of stouts, and some other ridiculous numbers. Clearly, that was not going on. Clearly, there was theft going on. And so, again, on that other auxiliary at the airport, we instituted a systems of checks and balances, and the report weekly, not monthly, not every 2 months, but weekly was required to be on Ellen Corkrum's desk. And people were told respectfully that any improprieties expected due action will be taken. Additionally, the vendors in the area from which these things were being ordered, those vendors were contacted. They were told, in fact, we met with them in person, several of them, and told them, say, look, respectfully, we've done an audit and we found what we believe to be improprieties, but we will consider that as water under the bridge going forward. If we find any requisition forms or invoices with your company name on it and there's impropriety involved, please do not take this as a threat. However, if we find it, we will expose your company nationally as well as the employees. So please take precaution. Don't take it as a threat, but take precaution and make sure that if you write on the invoice that the people are buying 50 Heineken, make sure that they're taking 50 Heineken from here. The word started getting around. That was not welcomed. Another action that we took is that we discovered that our own people, our brothers, our sisters at the airport, many of them who had been there 7, 8, 9, 10 years, were only making $54 a month. $54 a month. A bag of rice in Liberia is about $45, I believe. So what that meant is you have a man that is required to come to work every day, and at the end of the month, you're netting him with $9 after he buys rice for his family, and he's expected to live on $9. We resolved that if that meant we both would have to leave Liberia, under no circumstance is any one of our own is going to make $54. So immediately, within the first month of Ellen Corkrum being there, she ordered that the salaries of those making $54 be immediately doubled to $108. Additionally, that those people making $54 would receive Christmas bonuses of matching their salaries. Now, the monies that was used to pay for this was the monies that were recouped from the theft at the gas station, that was recouped from the theft at the VIP lounge, etc. So this wasn't us digging into the airport budget, but this was money basically that was saved. I can tell you that caused a ripple at the airport. We were told left and right that we were making the people frisky. The lower people at the airport, the poor people would be dancing. I remember on one trip when I came back and Ellen Corkrum came back from the U.S., or I think from Ghana or somewhere, as we started, and this was a surprise, as we got down from the plane, there was about 100, 150, 200 people that worked at the airport that knew we were coming. We didn't know they were there. These people gathered at the base of the airplane because in Liberia, you get down from the stairs, you walk on the asphalt, and then you walk into the terminal. They gathered there. They were pushing us around. They were lifting us up. They were beating drums. If you were there, you would have thought that some kind of head of state had arrived. But those were the people expressing their appreciation. People constantly were bringing chicken and gold and da-da-da-da. I mean, it was just amazing. But all of these things created animosity between us and the powers that be. Then we started to hear rumors that they were plotting to get rid of primarily Ellen Corkrum and then myself. When we started hearing this, then we became very determined that either we run away right now and, like most Liberians, just talk about corruption, or we decide to take the risk and stand up and try to bring an end to this thing. And once, after much prayer and reflection, we made that decision. That was at that point going forward that we purposed to start recording, especially the characters that we thought were plotting against us. So that's how it started.
Okay. Thank you, George Johnson. I got a few announcements here. Let me get those out of the way. The Liberian Diaspora Forum is happy to announce, very excited to announce that beginning January, we will start broadcasting live in Liberia through Renaissance Radio FM station. Of course, we will have to adjust our show time due to time difference between Liberia and the United States. So January 15 or so, we'll start broadcasting live in Liberia so that we can also be on air in Liberia. That's a good thing. Last week's show, I have not had time to upload that to YouTube, so if you went there to look for that, it's not there yet. My apologies. It's been a busy week for me. I promise you I will get that up there. And next week, Sunday, LDF, Liberia Diaspora Forum, will be hosting a group of Liberian writers and journalists who will come to commemorate the life and death of the fallen Liberian writer, Musu Haddad, who passed away, I believe, sometimes last month or the month before, a few months ago. So we'll have a group of Liberian writers and as well as journalists on the show next week, Sunday, to talk about her legacy, her life, and her good work for Liberia. We invite you to tune in for that. So let's take another caller here. Let's take the next caller. 8237, 8237. Your name, where you calling from, your question for George Johnson. 8237. Hello?
This is Mohammed Douglas.
Okay.
I'm calling from Minnesota.
Okay, Mr. Douglas.
Yes. I'm very happy to see the resume of Major Corkrum and Josh Johnson. Very beautiful. And I love to see more Liberians in their shoe where they are in this country. My problem is, as a legal advisor to Ellie Corkrum, do you have any link with this institution?
The Diaspora Consulting Firm.
Yes, SSF Entrepreneur Inc. and Diaspora Consulting Firm. Are you aware of Ellie Corkrum awarding any contract to this institution without passing through the public procurement contract system in Liberia, PPC? If so, why?
Thank you.
And secondly,
no, we'll take one for now, Mr. Duclo. We've got too many people. We'll take one. Come back. Thank you, though. You just stole my question off my sheet anyway. I had the same question written down. Yeah, Mr. Josh Johnson, can you address yourself to that?
Yeah, sure. Diaspora Consulting is headed by an outstanding African, a Senegalese by the name of Momar. I think they pronounce it Jang, but we would say Dieng. Momar went to school with Amara Konen. They were schoolmates. Additionally, Momar worked at the Ministry of Planning when Amara Konen was Minister at Planning. This is years ago, certainly years ago, before any of this came about. I think it was November of last year, Air France got stuck on the runway due to the poor condition of our airport, and they had some mechanical problems as a consequence of getting stuck. Because of that, the president of Liberia called a meeting and ordered that the problem be fixed. The president said rightfully that we cannot have Delta, Air France, all these international jets being stuck in holes in our runway. We have to fix it. We have to fix it now. Thereafter, the board of directors, some 7, 8 people, I've called some of their names before, Eugene Nangbe, Edward Dunn, Matakwa Kamara, some other people, they set out to have Ghana come in and help to fix that problem. Now, with the president's order, the nature of the problem, clearly nobody was going to do no PPCC for 3 months bidding and 3 bits and publishing and all that stuff when you've got airplanes with tons and tons of fuel getting stuck. Ghana said 2 days before they were to arrive that they had a conflict, that they could no longer do it. And so that left the authorities at the airport, the board of directors, scrambling. And I believe it was when Amara Konen suggested, or somebody suggested, that Senegal, being of all the Francophone countries in Africa, the French-speaking countries in Africa, their headquarters for all aviation is in Senegal. So since Ghana could no longer help, the focus got turned to Senegal to say if they have been managing all airport and aviation activities for all the French-speaking countries in Africa, then they clearly would have some expertise. It was at that point, I believe, that Amara Konen suggested that his friend, Momai Dieng, who had worked with Amara Konen at Planning, be contacted, since he's an outstanding African, a Harvard graduate, a PhD in mathematics and some other degrees, very bright guy. It was suggested that he be contacted, that perhaps he could give us some connection in Senegal to help get the problem fixed. And when he was contacted, that was when Diaspora Consulting got in the picture and they came to Liberia. So to answer your question, that's how it came about. I don't know Momar Deng. I met him because they brought several engineers to Liberia, 3 different locations to do the different works that they were contracted to do. So I've met him, but I don't know him. Other than meeting him at the airport, I haven't seen him, nor have I talked to him. I don't know his company. I don't have interest in his company. Neither does Ellen Corkrum. The other part of the question escapes me now. If you can help me out with that.
Well, the other part of the question was that if you had a connection with them, and if so, why? He had two questions, but we kind of restricted him to one for now, and hopefully.
Yeah. So absolutely no connection to them whatsoever.
Let me a quick follow up on his question though. So you saw engineers, at RIA doing inspection work in the name of Diaspora Consulting Firm. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Four different engineers came into Liberia on 3 different occasions. In fact, one of the engineers that came, his name escapes me, he had just retired from running the entire aviation system in Senegal for 20 years. When I say expertise, when I say the best of the best that Africa had to provide, yes, they came. The initial reception was at Bob Johnson's hotel. We met them there with some of the board and the airport staff to, receive them in the country. Thereafter, they met the rest of the people. They met with Public Works. Okay, yeah. I now remember the other part of the question. The other company, SSF, too, did I have any interest in that company? I'll answer that in a minute. They met with SSF. They met with the airport staff. They stayed in Liberia for weeks, and they did the work. They got partially paid. They prepared the reports. Those reports are available. As we mentioned, if you provide your email, we can email it to you, etc. The other part of the question was, did I have any interest in SSF? No, SSF is a Lebanese company that has been in Liberia for decades, I believe, even to going back to Charles Taylor time. They've been building road. I think they did timber and some other things. And, no, I don't know these people. The president's niece is married to one of the proprietors of SSF. So I don't know anything about those people.
Thank you. Now, let me. You do understand why I asked the question as whether you saw people engineers who came in the name of the Diaspora Consulting Firm, right? Because it appears as though there's been some dispute as whether there exists any such company. That has been one side of the argument, and then the other part has been, of course, the amount that was transferred. Now, to the best of my knowledge, since I was privileged to have seen some very highly privileged documents, it appears that you and Ms. Ellie Conqueror are not denying that, or at least she's not denying that there was some money transferred in the amount of $144,000 as opposed to $269,000, right? And it is also her position that she transferred $144,000 with approval from the appropriate authorities. Is that correct?
Yes. Brother Kafumba, if it is true, as it has been alleged, that Diaspora Consulting was a company, a figment of our imagination, was a company that never existed, no people ever showed up. If $1 was transferred to such a company, then it's wrong. Because nobody should make up companies in their minds when nobody show up and do work and pay $1. So the company showed up, as you mentioned. You have the documents, the emails. Several people who are still in Liberia, still in government, their names, their emails are there. They're writing emails back and forth with Diaspora Consulting, talking engineering talk that I'm not able to talk because I'm just a jurist. And so clearly, no, we did not make up this company. But even like you mentioned, the amount that they're saying was sent to the company was never sent to the company. Additionally, I think it's important to note that the structure at the airport did not allow Ellen Corkrum to sign contracts by herself or write checks or do bank deposits by herself. Everything that was to be done required 2 signatures. So it is improper, even just prima facie, to say that Ellen Corkrum paid anybody, unless it would be alleged that she forged the other signature. So Ellen Corkrum could not, it is impossible for her to have paid anybody. The board of directors approved this. There were emails, contracts, bank statements. You have the bank statements. You have the bank slips. Brother Kafumba, all of this showing that this wasn't true. The reality here, my people, is you have two Liberians that went home to give back in whatever way they could. They saw this prevailing culture of corruption. They decided to take the risk and do something. The president and her people discovered that these two people decided to expose them and record this thing. First, they try to plot against us as spelled out by Brani Samukai. Then they try to capture us and kill us as spelled out by Chris Massaquoi. When that didn't work, then they came up with this story that we took $269,000 and made up this company that did not exist, and we ran away to America. All of that is just not true.
Okay. All right. Let's take another caller. 7786-7786. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 7786.
My name is Jerry Wing. I'm calling from the nation's capital. I produce the Liberian African News Service. First of all, I want to commend you for the way you are conducting your program. Unlike others, I'm not going to call their names, okay?
Thank you.
There comes a time in life when one must take a stand that is neither civic nor popular nor politics, but you take it because it is right. If a man has not discovered something worth dying for, then he is not fit to live. These were the words of Martin Luther King Jr. We are the first. What I've just said should have summed up exactly what I wanted to say. Melvin, I salute you. I am proud of you. I've known you from the time you were 4 years old in Lakpasi. I know your family. I know your mom and other relatives. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. Once you know your conscience is clear and you're doing what is right, it's so sad that they don't have that transparent justice system in Liberia to expose the people there. So I can understand why you guys should not go back there, because you're not going to find justice there. Keep doing what you're doing. I will support you 100%. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Judge Johnson, that's a positive ovation there. Do you care to comment on that or just keep going?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. If I may just expound a little on the justice system in Liberia, what we have is people who are being accused, i.e. myself, Ellen Corkrum, Musa Ability, etc., and you have the president of the nation come out and pass judgment between these people. She says regarding Musa Ability that, don't worry, you have the highest confidence. I don't care what they say. I don't know who the they are. I guess maybe she's insinuating her justice minister, because the justice minister had just indicted him. But then referring to Ellen Corkrum and myself, she says we are criminals. And in order for somebody to be classified as a criminal, that means judgment has already been rendered against that person. And so regarding the legal system, I think it's clear that the president has already rendered judgment ahead of time before the court would have even had a chance. Additionally, the gag order that I'm sure most of the listening audience have heard about, a gag order normally should be initiated by the defendants in the case. The defendants would feel that perhaps without a gag order, their rights would not be protected. They would not have a fair trial. It should not be the prosecution, because the prosecution don't have any rights. It's the defendant's rights that are of major concern at a trial. Nevertheless, we were told the prosecution, Christina Tai, went ahead. They got a gag order. Additionally, the way it should work is that a motion, which means something in writing, should be filed. All the parties involved should be served, meaning they should be given a copy of what is in writing. The parties now given copies of what's in writing should have a chance to respond in writing to the same court, and then they would share copies with everybody. Normally, the court would then set up a court date to bring all the parties to court, and in this case, Christina, who is requesting the gag order, she would stand in open court and tell the court, the judge, why she's requesting a gag order, why it is necessary, and why the legal precedent, the law, supports that. The other parties, the defendants, would get a chance through their lawyers to say why they agree or disagree and how the law does not support that. And then usually at the end of the day, the judge will render a decision whether to put forth the gag order or not. All that we heard about was Christina Tai and the government went and got a gag order. Additionally, if the gag order is to be removed, then usually one of the parties would appeal the judge's decision. They would appeal the judge's decision, usually to a higher court. In this case, when that decision is appealed, when the higher court considers the appeal that has been filed, the higher court would look at the legal precedent, meaning the case law, what the law in Liberia has established, and see if that judge went against that case law, went against the law of Liberia. If the higher judge determines that the lower judge who issued the gag order went against the law of the land, then the higher judge is empowered to overturn the gag order. That is the way a system of justice should work. But in our case, the president comes back and says, let's drop the gag order, and without explaining how the law had changed, the gag order was dropped. And so from the caller, again, thank you, but those examples, and I can give more, but I know a lot of people have questions, so I will stop here. But those are just some of the examples to show clearly that we don't have a just system.
Thank you. 7867-7867. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for the judge.
Good evening, Kafuma Kurma. Good evening, Judge Johnson. My name is Musa Keita, calling from Minnesota, Brooklyn Center in particular. I just want to make, let me just give this question. So in your mind, having gone to Liberia, went through all of the illegal recordings that you got, because they were not informed about those recordings, whether they were doing an act in caution, that's one, or they were not doing it, that's another thing. But in your mind, from President Salif to all of the cabinet ministers, the government is really corrupt, right? That's my question.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Keita, first of all, your question assumes that the recordings are illegal. They are not illegal. I can tell you as a judge and a trial lawyer for many years, they're not illegal. That's number one. Number two, yes, I mean, it's clear that the president and her administration, they're corrupt. I mean, don't take my word for it. Let's look at the evidence. The evidence that we have brought forth, for instance, the Mak Ambla situation. Here you have a situation where there's some unrest in the country. People are killed. The person that is responsible for this, responsible meaning that that did something negligent or something improper or failed to do something that led to the killing, that person gets fired. The person gets fired essentially because they failed to provide security. If they had provided proper security, there wouldn't have been killing. So the person gets fired for failure to provide security, but then they turn around and pay this person up front $150,000 under the disguise that though that person wasn't fit to provide security as police director, they're fit to provide security at the airport. I mean, really? Who buys that? Additionally, when this person was paid, this person did not provide any kind of method statement ahead of time that will say, this is what I'm proposing to do. I would check this. I would do this. I would do this. At the end of the day, my findings should reflect blah, 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 blah. Normally, when you're providing a bid or a proposal, those are some of the things that you submit that is considered to see whether the government wants you to do that, whether it meets the government need. All that was provided by Mr. Ambla was a letter of a couple of paragraphs saying, I want to do security at the airport, and I will charge you all $150. There were no specificity as to what the security measures would do. Then that letter never went to the airport. It never went to Ellen Corkrum. It never went to the board of directors. That letter stayed within the cabinet. The letter went to Eugene Nangwe, the transport minister. The letter went to the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs. Then it went to Amra Kone. Between those three people and Mark Ambla, he was cut a check, and he got paid, and he left. Clearly, that's a sign of corruption. Additionally, some of the revelations we brought forth is of a company called NACO. During the period when Ellen Corkrum was there and I was there as well, upon reviewing some of the ledgers, it was discovered that monies were coming out of LAA that was going to this company called NACO. The company, the McLean family, Edward McLean, the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, Sarah McLean, I believe his brother, his relative, has interest in this company. This company was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars. But Ellen Corkrum, being in charge of the airport, she never saw Sarah McLean. She never saw any NACO person. She never saw one report. She never saw anything that they did. And so naturally we had this discussion, who is this company and why are they receiving this money? We determined that she should go forth and ask the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, because the McLean family name was on the company. When we go to ask them, and this is on recording, you hear them pretending on the recording like they don't know what she's talking about. They're saying that they told Musa Ability to tell her, and they don't know why Musa hadn't told her, and they sent Musa an email to tell her, but Musa never told her, and they sorry that he never told her, but he should have told her. The reality is Liberia is not that big. If they really wanted her to know the truth about what was going on with this company, they could have picked up the phone, they could have sent her an email, but it was clear what was going on. Additionally, Ellen Corkrum did not stop there. She went, requested an audience with the president. She sat with the president. Madam President, this NACO thing, she calls out the amounts. I've got concern, all this money coming out. And the president, too, starts pretending. She says, who is NACO? Then she starts accusing her people that Musa Ability and some local representative, she did not name the representative. She said they probably don't put this thing together to bring corruption. Then she's pretending to Ellen Corkrum, this is not approved, this is not right, Musa Ability has to be questioned, we have to put an end to this. I think without even accepting what I'm saying, just look at those evidences, listen to the recording. I think any red-blooded person, yes, will conclude this president is corrupt, this government is corrupt, and as a people, we cannot go forward with such a corrupt leadership.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. Thank you. I thought we lost you there. Thank you, Josh. Let me ask you quickly though. Assuming that the recording were even illegal, even if that was the assumption, before we got on the show today, I did a little research, and interestingly, I learned that Liberia actually does have what is called whistleblower protection law. So, if this case went to trial, as much as some people may think that the recordings were illegal, in your legal opinion, could you or Ellen be protected under whistleblower, protection in Liberia?
Absolutely. We would be protected under the statutes of Liberia. We would be protected under the Constitution of Liberia. And I'm glad you researched this. Additionally, thirdly, we will be protected under the whistleblower. Yes.
Okay, thank you. 9533, 9533, our next caller. 9533, your name, where you calling from, and your question for Josh Johnson. Hello?
Thank you very much. My name is Miki Kumala. I'm calling from Western Pennsylvania.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the judge. I listened to your introductory remark, and I really admire you for your achievement, you and your fiancee. So I want to say thank you for that. Having said that, I have a question to ask you regarding the work over there. For the time being, during your introductory remark, you may mention something slightly about history, Liberia being the first independent country in Africa, and it is the least country today in the world. That is quite true, but you being from here, and you went over there, and your fiancé was given an opportunity to lead the International Airport of Liberia. Will you please tell us what did she do besides the things that you mentioned about increasement of the salary of the people over there? What did she do to improve the status of the airport? Because a lot of time people leave from here, they go over there. They're like, when you go to Liberia, the airport is like a warehouse, and we are in a developed country, and we travel to other countries around the world, and especially nearby countries in Africa. These places are far advanced more than Liberia. Why is it?
So the question is, what else did Miss Ellen Corkrum do to improve?
Yeah, what else did she do
the condition of
to improve the airport? Yeah, to improve the airport.
Thank you. We got a question.
Ellen Corkrum did many things in addition to the anti-corruption stands that I mentioned with the gas station, the VIP lounge. There was a lot of this was just egregious. What some of the people do in Liberia, two things. Number one, they put on the payroll what they call ghost employees. So basically, if there's 5 people working there, they will put on the payroll that there are 10 people, and they will receive money, pay the 5 people, and then they will pocket the other 5. And that was something also that we discovered, and clearly we put an end to. Some of the measures that Ellen Corkrum took at the airport, I don't know if she still has these pictures or where they are, but if you would look at the airport before Ellen Corkrum, and you would look at the airport environs after Ellen Corkrum, it was night and day. For instance, believe it or not, a palm tree had grown at the airport near the runway. It takes years for a palm tree to grow. A palm tree had grown. The grass at the airport, my brother, I kid you not, I'm 6 feet tall, just over 6 feet tall. When I stood there, the grass was at my waist. Ellen Corkrum ordered that immediately the grass had to be leveled, just like you would see other airports. Ellen Corkrum got so many people to go in and they cut that grass. Those people got cutlasses and things. They cut the grass. Then she got a tractor for the first time to come in and start mowing the lawn. The fence at the airport, just deplorable, nasty looking. What the people would do in Liberia is they would take the money, and they have this thing called whitewash. They would take the whitewash, it's a talc powdery substance. They put it in water, dilute it, and then they just sprinkle and rub the water with the talc on the fence. And it'll look good for like a day or two, and then after that it fades. And this is the way it has been done. Ellen Corkrum ordered that if this is an international airport, this is the face of Liberia when people first enter Liberia, that people got wire brushes. They first scraped off the residue off of the fence and the whitewash. Then they whitewashed it with the right balance of the talc and water, and then they apply oil paint to the entire airport fence. If you have anybody in Liberia now, and if you go through the airport, just look, you will see what I'm talking about. It is still there today. And people at the airport and in government had said repeatedly this had never been done before. So those are some of the measures. I can go on and on, but those are some of the measures that she took. It's worth noting that all of this stuff happened in 3 months. All of this happened within a 3-month period. So clearly, if Ellen Corkrum had been allowed to be there years to come, oh, my goodness, this airport would have been at the right international standard today, I'm sure.
Okay. Folks, let me remind you once again, rather, that Judge Melvin Johnson has indicated to me that he has tons and tons of documents, up to 300-page documents, and if you are interested in getting copies of those documents, by all means, please email the Word document to the Liberian Diaspora Forum at yahoo.com. And once we get that and once we receive additional documents from the judge, we will gladly forward them to you for your viewing pleasure. I just wanted to make sure you are aware of that. So now let's take our next caller, and that would come from 2127. 2127. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Johnson. 2127.
My name is Mamu Momo. I'm calling from Maryland, to be specific, Gettysburg.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Corkrum, I must first of all thank you for the manner in which you are conducting this show.
Okay.
And you show that you really want to take Liberia into the to be developed at the world we find ourselves in. I'm bringing up the facts and following those that are involved into it and bringing it to the light. I must commend you for that effort. And I'm also proud of Judge Johnson. You know, I listened to him carefully from what he said. He has shown us that he has a sense of belonging. Though he lived in America for all the years he went through, other people went through it, he never lost focus. And when he got at the peak of helping his nation, he decided to be part of it. Using his account for the purpose of Liberia shows some sense of, love. You see, because that's your personal account. If you give it up to your country, that shows that you got love for your country for a purpose. And with all he explained, I must commend you for that. My concern here is, I know the Liberian government said they are pressing charges, but there is something we call character assassination of the two persons involved, Judge Johnson and Mayor Corkrum. It's not very, because we have heard this thing with press charges and it doesn't go anywhere. They decide to just play it low and they find out they got no facts, but they have already the harm and then the damage has been done to those involved. When you people press charges against the Liberian government, if they do not come up with facts, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Johnson, there you go. Another caller stealing my beautiful question. I have written the counter lawsuit that was filed through. So just go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. In terms of charges is usually, and bear with me, I'm a jurist, so I kind of want to provide an understanding for the listening audience. Charges are reserved for the state, for the government, an individual. Technically cannot file charges. But if we could have the president indicted, trust me, I would be one of the first people to do that. This is what we've done. When we left Liberia and we heard about the indictment and the extradition and the government published in, I believe it was July, August of this year, that they had sent already an extradition team to the U.S. Frankly, we were excited. We assembled the dossier that has been mentioned, about 300 pages of emails, bank statements, bank slips, contracts, reports, technical reports, etc. We assembled those information. We flew to Washington, D.C. We sought an audience with the U.S. Department of State. We spent hours with them. We went through the dossier from cover to cover with them. Additionally, we went sort of down the street in D.C. We met with folks at the U.S. Department of Justice. We shared that with them as well. We left a third copy with the Secretary of State's office and asked them to forward it to the U.S. Embassy in Liberia. And so we were excited. We were waiting for this extradition team because that would have given us the perfect opportunity in America on an international stage with the world watching and listening to play these recordings. We were salivating. That would have been a perfect place to expose this government and this president. And so we quietly waited, and that's the reason many of you are just now hearing from us. But since we realized that the government again tricked our people and said the extradition team came, now I don't know where this team is since July. We're now in December, 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe they're still stuck at the airport. I don't know where they are, but certainly they have not come. We're still here. We're not in hiding. In fact, we are coming out and calling this government out because we want the truth to come out. We want the truth to be exposed. More importantly, this nonsense, excuse my French, has to stop. We as a people were much better than this. We look at our younger sister country, Ghana. We applaud what they're doing. We appreciate what they're doing. And we pray for them because they're our sister country. But at the same time, we are embarrassed. We are embarrassed because we know as Liberians, God has blessed us with the ability. We can do as our sister countries are doing and arguably even better. Look at Rwanda. Look at the kind of leadership they have. Why can't we have the same? And so based on that motivation, we decided to take the risk and bring the truth to the people. So as the host continues to say, provide your email address. We will send it to you. We're not in hiding. These are public documents. These are not things that we are hiding. The government of Liberia, we mailed it to them so they have copies of this. And they can easily come out any day of the week and say, well, this document here that has been provided by Major Corkrum and Judge Johnson is incorrect, and we will address it. But as many of you know, we have been on the offensive for over a month, from show to newspaper, etc., saying the truth, and the government has not, if you notice, not one time have they refuted a single document. The reason is because what we are saying and have been saying is the truth. Enough is enough. Liberia and Liberians deserve better.
Okay. Let's take a caller from Winnipeg, Canada. Winnipeg, Canada. 1797, Winnipeg. Your name and your question for Judge Johnson. Winnipeg, Canada.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Kafuma. I very much appreciate the opportunity. And I want to say thank you to Judge Johnson for allowing us for the first time to hear their side of the story. I would just like to make a brief comment, if I may.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Abu Dukle, and I'm calling from Winnipeg, Canada.
Okay.
I heard somebody said earlier the scrutiny judges go through in the United States, and of course other personnel of the armed forces, etc., etc. You know, I think because lack of such scrutiny in Liberia, because we don't have such ability to do some of the things that people do here in order to hire people at sensitive positions, I believe that's one of the reasons why many educated Liberians choose to go to Liberia to work in the government under the guise of helping Liberia, but they're all there to steal and to enrich themselves. I haven't said that.
Hello, are you on?
I said I was muted, sorry. So really, that's nothing new as far as I know. And I also, with all of what has been said so far by Judge Johnson, and I've listened to all the recordings that have been released so far, I really didn't see any direct link or any direct, what should I say? They have not directly denied in any meaningful way on those tapes the charges that have been alleged. And as far as I can tell from the tapes, there is absolutely nothing new on those tapes. Everything Judge Johnson has said about corruption, everybody knows. John Molu said Ellen Johnson's government was 3 times more corrupt than Charles Taylor's government. That's nothing new. But I think to this date, Corkrum and Judge Johnson have not provided any direct convincing explanation contrary to the charges that have been alleged. And I heard him talk, I don't know, this is somebody he talked about painting the airport. I was, based on what I read on the internet, Front Page Africa, I even learned that contract was given to Judge Johnson by Corkrum. I don't know how true is that part of it. But my point is, so far, there hasn't been anything new in all this saga that have been going on for the last little while. Judge Johnson has just highlighted what we all already know to be the facts, that the corruption. It's nothing new. So he and Corkrum have not provided anything new so far.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
I don't know when you joined the show, but as far as the $269,000, investment allegation, Mr. Johnson has said he's also provided documentation and willing to send SIM to all of our listeners tonight. He has said that, first of all, the amount that was transferred overseas was not $269,000. It was instead $144,000 because the first $125,000 transfer did not go through, which was done on December 10, 2012. It was the second one done on December 13 of the same year that went through, and then the $19,000.
Yeah.
And also, as I said, if you heard me say, Major Congress not denying that that amount was transferred, but instead the argument is that it was transferred with a proof authorization from the appropriate persons. So, and that's where the argument is. I don't know if that helps or not.
That means it is their position that the transaction, as it's been alleged, was legal, was the way it should have been done. If I get you correctly, right?
Correct.
It's our position, if I may. The government is saying, sir, that we made up this company that does not exist. No employees came. No work was ever done. We pretended that we had a company, and we stole $269,000 and ran out of Liberia. As I mentioned, we've assembled nearly 300 pages that has bank statements, some of which the host has in his possession, and he's been referring to bank slips, emails, contracts, and other things we've assembled. When I mentioned earlier that we sat down with the U.S. Department of Justice, we did that. When I mentioned earlier we sat down with we gave to the Department, the Department of State, we did that. So, yes, the recordings do not provide an answer as to whether or not we made up this fake company. But the documents that we've assembled, we've sent this to the government of Liberia directly. We've shared several copies, 20-something copies with different journalists and people in Liberia, and we've been emailing continuously here in America. And I ask you to provide your email address to the host. We would get a copy to you so you can look at it yourself. That's what we've been doing to bring forth the truth.
Okay. Mr. Dukla, and please, if you have a follow-up question, please come back in the queue by dialing *61. I had to, clear the line because too many people waiting here. But by all means, please come back if you wish to follow up on that comment. 9138-9138, your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin. 9138.
My name is Alexander Ganda, and I'm calling from Minnesota, Brooklyn Park.
Okay. Welcome.
Okay. Brother Kafuma, first of all, I want to say thank you for the forum. We've been, listening to people being put a public opinion discussing this issue. And some of us have not really gotten detail of it as it is being explained tonight. And Liberia being a corrupt country is not a new thing. The word corruption is not new to Liberia. But the gentleman that is narrating the story tonight, I understand he's a judge. I don't know whether he's a judge registered in Liberia or he's a judge in the U.S. And my understanding is also that there's an amount for which they were accused of transferring, for which they left the country. Now, as a judge, if you are saying that the system is not good, and then for $250,000 or $260,000 indictment, you will escape the country and come to America to I don't know who is going to do the work for you in Liberia, because knowing that legal system operate based on jurisdiction. So Liberia is a different jurisdiction. You are being indicted there. You are in another jurisdiction, and you are disseminating information. So my question is, how do you expect, even if the government, if the legal system is as corrupt as you think it is, how do you expect to be clear from the indictment that from the case that the government has taken to court? How are you going to defend yourself? How are we going to know that what you're saying is correct if you are here,
Thank you. We got a question, Josh. So what are your plans? How are you going to deal with this lawsuit, regardless of the government being corrupt or not? But the fact remains there's an indictment pending on you and Ms. Ellen Corkrum. So how do you plan to deal with it? How are you going to clear your good names?
Well, the name that I have, the name that I've earned over the years, God has blessed me with it. It has not been the Liberian people, it has not been the Ellen supporters, it has not been the critics or the skeptics that have given it to me. And so I'm a firm believer of what God has done, what God has given me. No man can undo, no man can take. That's the first point that I want to make with all due respect. Secondly, we're not talking about a system that is just. We're not talking about a true justice system. And so I never expected, and nor do I now expect, that Liberia will really ever do anything. What I've learned from all of this is that there is a culture where, based on the level of understanding, the exposure of our people at large, that this government raises issues. It has a very sophisticated media machinery. They raise these issues, they put out these positions, and then they do nothing because they expect that the thing will just die down. As echoed by some of the callers, oh, this is nothing new, you ain't telling us nothing new, Liberia is corrupt. That's not acceptable. It should not be acceptable. Frankly, it angers me, it embarrasses me to hear Liberians say this is nothing new and, well, it's just another day, let's move on. I've got a friend in Liberia that told me the other day, and I want to share this just briefly, that he volunteers at a second grade, at an elementary school. He volunteers and teaches in the second grade. And he's been doing it for a while. This day he goes back to the class, and one of his favorite students is not there, a young girl. And he asked the rest of the pupils, the rest of the students, where is so-and-so? And they chuckled. They said that the school-feed dog now bueha. And he asked them, what does that mean? Long story short, this little girl who was promising, according to this guy in his class, dropped out of school because her family could not afford 500 LD. 500 LD. That's the equivalent of less than $6 or so, like U.S. dollars. For this reason, this 2-year-old educational future has been derailed. And so when you have such consequences that are going on, and I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of such examples going on, it is not acceptable. It angers me. It disgusts me. It makes me disgusted to hear Liberians say, oh, you ain't saying nothing new, that's corruption, that corruption. Yeah, it may not be new, but it's not acceptable. It is time that we do something. It is time that we quit talking and take action. Because if we keep doing what we have been doing, we will keep getting what we have been getting.
Okay. Gotta leave it there, I guess. 1963, 1963. Your name, where you calling from, your question for the judge. 1963.
Hi, my name is Al Donjo. I'm calling from Brooklyn Park, Plymouth, Minnesota. Good evening, Honorable Melvin. First of all, I would like to thank you for your service to the Liberian people for a short period of time. I've heard you talking about God in your conversation with the moderator several times. I'm kind of curious. As a God-fearing person, as a God-fearing judge, it is not right for a God-fearing person to bring down the leader of a nation. Morally, it's wrong. I don't know why I'm intentionally. My question has to do, why they say that whatever things that you want to do to expose corruptions in Liberia, you and Mrs. Corkrum went with the intention to record President Ellen Johnson to disgrace her to the world. She's whether we like it or not, she's a hero to Africa because being the first African female head of state.
So do you have a question, Mr. Donzo?
Yeah.
What is the question?
Yeah. The question is, why is it that since he considers himself a God-fearing person, why is it that he wants to bring down this lady to the ash? He wants to disgrace her, even though every government in the world there's some sort of corruption. No government is immune from that. Why is it that he wants to do that?
Thank you.
Mr. Donzo, as a believer in Jesus Christ, I don't believe that it is against God's will. I don't believe that it is against his provision, his laws, that we expose corruption. In fact, I believe it is in line with his will. I don't know how you see it and why you see it differently, but I believe that it is in line with his will. I believe that's what we are to do. The Bible talks about truth being like light. The Bible talks about truth setting people free. Anytime you're Africa's oldest independent nation and like that 2-year second grader girl, you don't have $6 and change to go to school to further your education, then you're not free. Anytime you're Africa's oldest independent nation, you don't have electricity, you don't have water, you don't have roads, you don't have schools. I can almost say you don't have anything. You're not freed. Anytime you cannot feed yourself, anytime you got a man who's working his hardest, but you're paying him $9 after he's able to buy a bag of rice, he's not free. And so if the word of God says the truth will set us free, then I don't believe that I'm against the word, Mr. Donzo.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Melvin Johnson. Let's take one from 0939, 0939, your name, where you calling from, and your question for the judge. 0939.
Yeah, this is Gonkoi Doma calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yes, Judge Johnson, this is your turn. When the Doe government wanted Taylor, a medical doctor helped him, and he got out of Liberia. When they wanted the Liberians to believe the government, they said the man misappropriated $900,000. When they wanted him and they wanted the Liberian government to believe them, they said, the man stole $1 million. So people thought that the man took the money actually and put it in his pocket. Because misappropriation doesn't necessarily mean that you took the money physically. Now, since the government of Liberia wants you, they're going to say you stole $260,000. People say corruption is not new, and so what? And so we should all sleep. Everybody on this line, when they go to Liberia, Mr. Johnson, they're going to be corrupt. Because hundreds of them have left this country and gone to Liberia, and they turn into the same corruption. A friend of mine left this country. He said, I'm going to fight corruption. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When he got in Liberia, he was given a job. He tried his best, but he was alone. You know what he did? He said, hey, to hell with the system. His price corruption was $30,000. He started building a house. I am thankful to you and Ellen that you didn't fall in this category. Somebody has to do something. What do we mean by corruption is not new? Somebody has to do something. The hundreds of millions of dollars international community spending in that country, we give contract to ourselves. Every minister is a contractor. The bogus building, the building, after 2-3 years, those building will fall apart, and we have nothing to show for the money. Corruption is always there. So what? So we should sleep? Thank you very, very much. Somebody has to do something.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I assume you don't have any question, right?
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Yep, your point is well taken by Mr. Melvin Johnson. Thank you. Your point is well taken. Moving on. Let's take one from 1211, 1211. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for the judge. Hello, 1211? 121. Yeah, 1211. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for the judge.
I'm Mohammed from Maryland. How are you?
Fine, sir. What's your question, quickly?
Right. Anyway, because time is fast spent, I would just, I wanted to make some comment before giving my questions, but since time is fast spent, I would just want to ask the judge quickly.
Thank you.
All right. My question is that, I mean, it's supposed to be in twofolds, but I overhear you saying that people are entitled to one questions, correct?
Yeah, well, if you do one right now, you can always dial *61 and come back. If we have time, we'll get to it. Okay, so I'm glad you were listening, though. I'm glad. Thank you.
Right. I didn't listen to it from the beginning, but I overheard the judge making some comment. All right. My question is, the judge talked about, the judge relationship with the lady over there, their fiance, correct? Mm-hmm. And also he happened to be working with this lady as well, and you were contracted by the airport authority to do certain piece. Or if my memory serves me right, if he said something like that, because I came into the conversation. If that's the case, that's just a rhetorical question. If that's the case, I just feel some sort of conflict here as well, since the judge is, saying that he's out there exposing corruption. Didn't he seek conflict with that kind of situation where his fiancée contracting him, or someone from there contracting him to do a piece of work wherein he is and fiancé as referee and players at the same time? That's a serious problem with that. How can he address himself to a situation like that?
Thank you.
That's a very good concern and question. Actually, Ellen Corkrum is not my fiance per se. She's not engaged to me. Out of respect for our relationship, the media, the government of Liberia, at some point they branded me her husband, and they branded me her boyfriend, and they branded me the fiance. And so out of respect for everything, I just kept quiet, but we're not engaged or anything like that.
Okay. They are not engaged, so not quite as related as we've been made to understand. 7028, 7028, your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin. 7028.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kroma. This is Sekou Brahima, caller from Philadelphia. Let me say a big thank you to the judge on the line. Again, I am sorry I came on the line a little late. I'm not sure if my questions have already been asked or not. But just quickly, the judge, I would like to know, please, if at all any money, regardless of the amount, was ever transferred into your account from your fiancé. And follow up, as a judge in America, what was your exact assignment at this time around in Liberia? Whether it was to work with your girlfriend or your fiancé or your wife, or it was on different accounts. And also, whether you have any intention.
Mr. Caller, you got two in already. We're only taking one question at a time. Thankfully, you've got two in. So let's take those for now.
All right, Kafuma, just before the judge addresses that, let me make a quick point here. I heard you when I got on asking him about the protection under the Whistleblower Act, and the judge went ahead and said, yes, he will be protected. I tend to differ because maybe given his own experience in American jurisprudence, he may not be in the technical detail of the Liberian own jurisprudence, but the Whistleblower Act protects people who follow set standard of reporting. Unfortunately, the manner in which these have been produced do not fall within.
Yeah, we have to leave it there. I'm sorry. You can come back. I just want to make sure we show some consistency here. Judge Melvin, can you address yourself to the first two questions before we got to the whistleblower part of it?
Yeah, I will indulge the questions. I think both of them have been answered, but since Brother Sekou admitted that he's just coming on the show, no money was ever transferred to me personally. For the benefit of two companies that were heading to Liberia to do work, money was transferred to my business IOTA, which is a trust account, and then immediately forwarded to both of these companies in an effort to create a record so that in the event if these companies did not appear in Liberia or they defaulted somehow, that there would be a way to go after them. That was the activity regarding any sort of account linked to me whatsoever, but no money was ever sent to me personally, to any personal account or anything of that nature. The other question, I sort of forgot the other question. He was asking multiple questions. Please help me.
Let's take next caller. For the caller, if he's still on the line, I know that, but not in the queue anymore. So, and I hope you understand that the volume is so huge here. But by all means, please dial *61. We will take it from there again. Let's take one from 5728. 5728. Your name, where you calling from, and your question quickly.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My name is Bengali Trawale from Minnesota. George Johnson, I want to say thank you very much. Actually, I don't know you. I never heard of you before until now. I'm so much proud of you, hearing all this about you. So accomplished George from Liberia, 7 years as Chief Judge, and also your fiancee to her accomplishment is so huge, a Liberian lady for that matter. But from listening to you, I think you said that you did not know the lady in question, Ellen Corkrum, until you went to Liberia and you got contracted, and so that you work closely with her in the same institution. That seems to me that the government of Liberia was somehow instrumental in connecting the two of you, which is so great to accomplish Liberian bright. But my small question here is that from the communication we received, we were to listen to Ellen Corkrum, the principal character that was inducted by the government of Liberia alongside with you. But what I'm seeing now is only you, not her. So what changed behind closed door? And is there any plan for her to come so we can listen to her too, or is only that you guys chose to let you come because of your expertise as the one who can better articulate whatever you try to defend? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we going to have the major on the show sometime in the future?
Yeah. The caller, I think since you live here in America, you understand the demands of the schedules here. Ellen Corkrum is an extremely distinguished woman from Liberia. As I said previously, she's somebody we all should be proud of. Not only does she still serve currently in the U.S. military, not only does she still fly for the U.S. military, she's also a commercial airline pilot. She has 2 children. She's a mother, family woman. She's extremely busy, and she and I have been on multiple shows in Liberia and here in the U.S., due to her scheduling conflict today, she could not make this program, and so that's the only reason she's not here. It's not because that I am more articulate than she is. She's very qualified, well-versed, able to defend and to put forth this truth as much as I am, and even arguably better. So that's the only reason she's not here, due to the demands of her schedule flying around the country and oftentimes around the world.
Thank you. For those of you who just joined us, there are a lot of you who just joined us. Let me welcome you to the Liberian Diaspora Forum Weekly Talk Show, as always. And sadly, we are winding down. We've been here over 2 hours now, but you still have time to get your question in. And hopefully you know who we have. That's why I brought you to the show. We are privileged to have Judge Melvin Johnson, the fiancé of the former managing director of Liberia Airports Authority, Ms. Ellen Corkrum. So he's giving us his account of event. You've heard the tapes, and so that's what we have tonight. So if you just got here, just dial *61. Hopefully we can take your questions before it's all over. And again, let me remind you that Judge Melvin has indicated that he got some documents that he'd like to share with you. If you are interested in seeing any portion of those documents, by all means, please email the Word document to the Liberian Diaspora Forum at yahoo.com. And once I receive the documents from the judge, I will make sure to forward them to your email address. So we'll take callers. Let's take new callers, and then we'll get to these some of these follow-up callers here. 0755. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm kind of a little bit confused here, though I got something up and on. Yeah, in fact, it's just so new again. You just talk about time, but from the beginning, I don't think time was even mentioned. But I'll quickly to the issue.
My brother, there's always time mentioned, and you know that. We can be here indefinitely. Just squeeze in your question, please.
Yeah, quickly to the issue. I'm kind of a little bit confused here because sometimes callers come in with praising the guest, and sometimes he alludes to that, yes, indeed. Praising him that, yes, he's exposing corruption. And sometimes really alluding to that.
Are you accusing me of bias already?
No, I said, I'm going straight to the issue. I'm saying sometimes callers may cause and they praise the guest. The guest that, yes, indeed, is fighting corruption. And he alludes to it. And again, he's sometimes speaking like he has been accused by the government. So I don't really know who is accusing who here in this case. I'm kind of a little bit confused.
It's the government of Liberia that has indicted Judge Melvin Johnson and his fiancee, U.S. Air Force Major Ellie Corkrum.
Of 269,000, right?
Of transfer. No, actually, the indictment, I have some document before me here. It's not just that. They are indicted for the crimes of economic sabotage, theft of property, criminal conspiracy, and misapplication of entrusted property. Now, $269,000 is certainly a big chunk of it. So, and that's the part that we want to talk about tonight. Right? You read about that quickly.
Thank you so much. And so I want to know, because he also spoke that the whole allegation is about, they did why they should the company was a fake company, and I want to know really, since the money was transferred to this fake company, and the government saw that it was fake, and they accepted and sent it. So I'm kind of a little bit confused, and I want you to really a little bit elaborate, because sometimes this issue is not really clear since you're on the show today.
I'll tell you what, here's what I can say to you. Obviously, we are running out of time so quickly, and you're right. Maybe you just joined the show. Otherwise, I'm sure by now you would have understood where we are. But as I said, not too long ago, the judge has offered to make some documentations available. Please email, the Word document to the Liberian Diaspora Forum at yahoo.com. And when those documents come through, I'll be glad to forward some to you. And then in the future, if the judge appears on this show or any other show, hopefully by then you would have understood what's going on and be in better position to ask your question. Is that fair enough?
All right, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's see who's available here next. Let's take 7627. 7627. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin Johnson. 7627.
You on Payma, calling from California.
All right.
Moderator.
Yeah.
I beg you, please keep quiet. Let me finish.
That depends how long you go.
Don't say anything. Let me finish, because you're always cutting me off. Please.
Oh my goodness! Are you accusing me of being biased? I've done my best to be.
Because of that. The only reason I'm coming back on is because Melvin is off. So keep quiet. Let me finish.
Well, let's be civil and be polite about it, and just keep it brief. And I'll let you finish.
Mr. Melvin, I want to congratulate you for carrying on your God-ordained course. I know you are working for ignorant and education.
All right.
Hello? Are we still on?
Yeah, we stay on. It is. Hello? Hello? Okay, I really hope that I don't get accused of, because I really didn't do anything. I swear. So, call back, please. I'm looking for, I'll take your number as soon as it comes through. It doesn't have to be in the order because you're making your point and you had already accused me of always shutting you off, something I don't do, I never do on this show. So, please come back from California, right? Please come back. Let's take 1728. I believe this is Wisconsin. 1728. Your name, where you calling from? I believe it's Wisconsin. If you can confirm that, and your question for Judge Melvin.
Yeah. Good evening. This is Manu Bedete calling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I want to ask our studio guest. When the board of director of the Liberian Aviation Authority first took the action to dismiss Corkrum, she resisted the decision and said that it was the president who appointed her and not the board. And she went ahead praising the president, how she trusted the president. Don't you think the both of you now are blackmailers, given the fact that you did not raise the issue until we hear about the correction case behind you? How can we trust you that you are not blackmailers, and why? Hello? Yeah, you muted me first. I didn't think you muted me. Yeah. Why is it that you kept so quiet until the alarm blew on you? So don't you think you should be considered a blackmailer? Answer these two questions.
Thank you. Blackmailer. Should you be considered as blackmailing government officials of Liberia? And what? All right. So, Judge, you got a question.
Yeah. Did you say his name was Musa Bility?
No, Manu Bility, he said.
Okay. So Mr. Bility, apparently he's ill-informed about several things. The board never fired Corkrum. That's number one. Corkrum never praised the president for not firing her because the board fired her or whatever he said. That's number two. Number three, somebody who blackmails is somebody who holds something over another person's head, threatens that person, because they usually want to get something from that person, usually some kind of financial gain or something to that effect. Clearly, with what we've done, with what we are doing, and by His grace, with what we will continue to do, I don't think that resembles blackmail whatsoever. So that's my answer. That's my response. I don't know what he's talking about. Nobody has blackmailed anybody.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Let's take 1728. I don't know if this is a follow-up caller or a new call. I'm not sure. 7028, your name, where you calling from, and your question for the judge. 7028.
This is Sickle caller. Quickly, I just wanted to know.
A follow-up caller. Yeah, Mr. Caller.
Yeah, because the judge did not hear my second question, and I
told you to come back, and then we'll probably get to you. I'm glad you came back. So, what was the second question?
The second question is whether, given order has obtained, the judge is willing to return to facing the court procedure to answer questions to his indictment.
Thank you. Judge Melvin, are you waiting to go back to Liberia to stand trial?
Brother Siku, if I was to go back home and actually face a court, a just court, a real court, as opposed to facing Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who we have exposed, yeah, I would consider that. But the reality is, in Liberia, as has been exhibited by recent situations, that there's no real court to go face. Basically, you would go face the person and the people that, according to the highest ranking security officer in the country in the form of the Defense Minister, Brani Samukai, those people, according to Brani Samukai, that were plotting against us, according to the chief of police and the director of police for the entire country, those people that the president called into a high-level secret meeting and ordered us to be captured and murdered. And then the president showed additionally with the gag order that there's no legal precedence, that she is the judge, the jury, the president, etc. and that we don't have democracy. In essence, we have a dictatorship. So am I willing to go back to a dictator in a dictatorship situation who has been exposed for corruption, who I've been plotted against by, and who has ordered me already to be murdered? I think if you had a brother or a sister or mother or father in the same situation, I think the answer will be the same that I'm giving you. Absolutely not. I'm not willing to go back, go face somebody who had already attempted to murder me. If there was a just court system, yeah, I'm a juror. That's what I do every day, all day.
Thank you. Thank you. And folks, let me remind you again that next week, Sunday, we will be hosting Liberian writers over in the diaspora all over the world, I'm told. Liberian writers and Liberian journalists who will be on the show to talk about the life and death of a fallen Liberian writer, the president of Musu Hadar. They'll be discussing her work, her patriotism, and we invite you to join us next week, Sunday, to listen to that. A group of Liberian writers. I hope they also talk about how they intend to stop Liberia from importing textbooks to Liberia. So let's come engage them next week, Sunday. Let's take another, by the way, it's 7:38 here, and it is my intention that we'll end this show at 8 o'clock because that would have put us well over the 2 hours limit. Actually, that will bring us to 3 hours, and I think that's fair enough for a show. So if you haven't had a chance to ask your question yet, please dial *61, and I'll take your question over here. Not so much. Let me take. Try to find new callers. All right, let me take this. 9338. Your follow-up question quickly. 9138. 9138 rather. Your follow-up question quickly.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for bringing me back. And let me just make something clear to the brother in studio. My previous question was not because I support corruption or I feel that corruption is a kind of a uncontrollable thing that we cannot control in Liberia. But with my existence, with the time that I've been living, and the way corruption has been addressed by Liberians, starting from the race riot up to the time of the war. I was in Liberia during all of those times, and we address corruption the same way like that. So when I hear people saying some people are corrupt, the code does not exist, and all the kind of thing, it baffles me because this is a country we're talking about. Granted, the system may not be, too good, but there is America cannot take a code from here and take it to Liberia to go and address issue, especially with issue that you're talking about. I'm not too sure that somebody is going to get killed because of $260,000. So I think that my brother George, I would think that you go back to Liberia and enter the legal system and acquire, and ask for the help of some lawyers. We got some good lawyers in Liberia, and build a legal team to clear your name, and then you can stay there to fight corruption. And we all can join you to fight corruption. But if you are all the way here, we will receive those documents, and they're not going to do anything for us because there's nobody leading the fight, and you are here, you just feeding us with those documents.
Thank you. We gotta leave it there. Thank you. We gotta leave it there. Thank you. We'll get the point now. Let's leave it there. George Melvin, let me ask, have you ever thought about, is there such thing as a trial in absentia? Can this case go on with you being represented to another way through a third party without you physically being present? Is that I'm not a lawyer. I know nothing about law, to be honest. But I'm just wondering, as a judge and a professional lawyer, so is that a possibility that this case could go on and you could be represented through a lawyer or a third party without you being physically present? Is that possible?
Yes, it is absolutely possible. Liberia is one of the few countries when, in terms of survey of international law and laws amongst countries, Liberia is one of the few countries that does allow for a trial in absentia, which means in somebody's absence. Yes.
Okay. Well, so then the last person who was on the floor, then the concern that why can't you go and stand trial? If at the very least you can't make the journey back to Liberia for fear that the justice system is not as good as it ought to be, will you consider hiring a lawyer or maybe going through some law firm in Liberia to represent your interests against the government of Liberia then?
Absolutely, I would. I would do that any day of the week. I would do that so that all the documents that we have will be exposed to as many people as possible, so that all the recordings that we have would be exposed to as many people as possible. But mark my word, the government of Liberia is not going to have no trial. They're not going to do anything because they know at the end of the day it will only mean further exposure for them. They're not going to do anything. They're hoping that they would raise all these propaganda, all this allegation with their so-called media machinery, and then once they feel whatever damage they have wanted to have done is done, then they will let the issue die. This is the history of this government. So no, they're not going to do anything.
Okay. All right. Let me with 17 minutes to go, let me quickly take these mostly follow-up callers so we can get you out of here. It's been a long 3-hour show. Let's start with Dukley in Minneapolis. Mr. Mohammed Dukley, a follow-up question quickly, sir.
Yes, Judge Johnson, thank you very much for coming on the show. And you have talked about corruption. Now, we have many forms of corruption. It can come in political, it can come in social, it can come in financial, and so on. You being a legal advisor to Ellen Corkrum, who was managing director for Liberia Aviation Authority. And now it is alleged that money was channeled through your company, because you said that no money was channeled into you. You have said that you do not have any link with SS Entrepreneur Inc. You have said that you have no link with Diaspora or Diaspora Consulting Company. And you have said that Ellen Corkrum is not your fiancee. So in this light, as a legal-minded person, and being a legal aid to Ellen Corkrum, and money was channeled through your company in the U.S., is it not conflict of interest? Is it not another form of corruption that you have been talking about? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, absolutely not. In fact, that is the whole purpose of having a legal person to assist an institution or person. For instance, to the caller, one of the kind of cases that I handle now are injury cases, death cases, car accident cases. If, God forbid, you were involved in an accident and you hired me and my firm represented you, at the end of the day, the insurance company for the at-fault party would send the monies that were to be divided between you, the hospital, the medical providers, myself, etc. The insurance company would send that money to my trust account with certain instructions, and based on the contracts between you and myself, the contract between you and the medical providers, the hospital, etc., then the money would then be dispersed from that trust account to the various parties. So that is the whole purpose. That is not corruption. That's how the system is designed. That's how the system works. That's the whole purpose of it. It's not corruption at all. No, sir.
Okay. Well, I hope that's clear enough. Let's take a new caller. 2929. Your name, where you calling from, and your question for Judge Melvin Johnson. 2929.
Yes, my name, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
My name is Gabriel Nimley. I'm in Ohio.
Yeah,
I just want to say to the brother, I commend you for what you're doing. One of the things that one of the callers raised earlier is that those of us on the outside who see corruption, not necessarily you, when we get there, we do the same thing. And that is the thing that is paralyzing Liberia to this date. How do we challenge that?
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
So Brother Nimlin, how we challenge it is, one example is what we have done. Technology allows for recordings. It is very difficult to nearly impossible for people to refute recordings. And one other way is by documentation, such as what we've done to gather all these documents, to gather the Mock Ambla documents to show how he was paid illegally for the killings in relation to the CDC rally, and how dreadful it is that in light of that, the victim, the deceased, his family received nothing, no consideration, but President Johnson Sirleaf paid the person who is responsible for the killing. So by documentation, that's another way. Another way, too, is to form coalition and alliances and unify ourselves and determine that we will take action. In this situation, the corrupt practices of this government has become very clear. It continues to be clearer and clearer. We as a people, we can move for impeachment. Many people in Liberia have been moving for impeachment individually. A coalition, an alliance that would be formed for such an effort would be much stronger than the individual doing that. And so that's something we can, those are three quick examples of what we can do. We can record these people and expose them. We can document the corruption. We can form alliances, and we can take action in lieu of just talking and just accepting that this is nothing new.
Thank you. Senor, I'll get you next year. Hold on 1 second. Let me take a quick follow-up from Winnipeg. Winnipeg, Canada, your follow-up question quickly.
Thank you, Kafuma. And once again, thank you to Judge Johnson for allowing us to dialogue tonight about this alleged corruption issue. I just wanted to say, I know you have repeatedly mentioned how you were being sought to be captured and then murdered. And I know and I also hear you say the media machine of the government, et cetera, et cetera. I know for myself, 90% of what I know about this situation, I've learned it through Front Page Africa, and I know everybody knows Front Page is not a friend of the government. So I don't know, when you talk about the government media machine, I don't know what machine you're talking about. Secondly, I heard you say about how you were supposed to be captured with Corkrum and murder. On those tapes that I've heard so far, there's only a mention of you being stopped if you show up at the airport. There's nowhere where it's mentioned that when you are captured, you should be murdered. Having said that, I've also learned from Front Page Africa that Corkrum is an American citizen. Do you believe, as bad as the justice system is, the American embassy is there, they will seek the interest of any American citizen who is facing the justice system? Do you actually believe that the American embassy will be there and allow Corkrum to be treated in a manner and the way in which you have described tonight?
Thank you. Thank you for all your contribution tonight. I'll leave it there. All right, but hold a series of questions there. Judge Melvin?
Caller, if you listen to the Massaquoi recording, Massaquoi makes it very clear that, and I quote, he is aware of the act that is to be carried out against us once we are caught by the government. So when you're dealing with the number one corrupt government on earth, you're dealing with a president that essentially got caught with her pants down admitting corrupt practices on recording, and she realizes it, and she calls a high-level meeting immediately afterwards. and she expresses to her high-level people the act that is supposed to be carried out. Yeah, Massaquoi did not say that the president said we should murder you. No, that's not what I'm saying he said. But I think we're all wise enough to know from prior governments, similar government, corrupt governments, that when you're captured at night and the director of police tells you, I'm aware of the act that is supposed to be carried out against you, I think we can all read between the lines. And so, yeah, for me, it's very clear that it's murder, because if God forbid we were captured, we likely would have been found by the road. Maybe the story would have been we were smuggling drugs or running away, or they found money. I don't know what the story would have been, but we would not have been able to tell the story today as we are.
Okay. Well, do you agree with the caller that Front Page Africa is not a friend of the Liberian government, as far as we know, and it is true that many people in the diaspora, myself included, at least up until I was privileged to have received the documents from you, we've all learned this case through Front Page Africa, and that is not the government's mouthpiece?
Well, yeah, absolutely. When I said the media machinery of the government, I wasn't referencing Front Page Africa or your show or any one particular show. These are some of the things that we have experienced. Once we realized that the so-called extradition team that had left Liberia and was headed to the U.S., after they announced it and months had passed and we never saw them, and we gave them enough time to leave the airport, and apparently they couldn't leave baggage claim or wherever they were, we decided to bring the truth to the people. When we decided to bring this, Liberia primarily is a radio listening-based audience. The majority of the people in Liberia do not read. They don't read. The newspapers are not available to a large number of people, so we went on the radios. The minute we went on the radios, initially we were allowed. The first time thereafter, we were told privately and secretly by people still in government. We still have a lot of friends in government that continues to feed us information, still give us more documents. The dossier continues to grow. And these people made it very clear that the government was either threatening radio stations to close them down, or they were paying them off if they would allow us on the radio. Now, a couple of radio stations deviated, and then we saw the gag order that says, okay, anybody that allows them to talk in this country will go to jail. And so when I talk about the government media machinery, again, I'm not singling out. Certainly, I didn't mention Front Page Africa or you, Brother Kafumba, or anybody like that. It is from the experiences we've had directly as well as vicariously. Those are the things to which I speak when I talk about the government media machinery.
Thank you. So you're here with Minneapolis, Minnesota. Your line is open.
Yes, Brother Kafumba, first let me say thank you. Thank you. When we decided to bring, and also to let me thank your audience. I couldn't have been so grateful for the kind of respectful audience you have. I think because it depends on how the moderator set the tone. Personally, I'm grateful to God to call the Honorable Judge Melvin Johnson my friend. I'm glad that God brought us together to know him, to know a good son, a good Liberian. And I mean, I don't easily praise people because I'm a Highlander myself. I haven't met Honorable Johnson in person, but I'm blessed to know him. I'm blessed to know him. I think Liberia should be blessed to know that we have a true son. And I think your audience truly demonstrated why we need Melvin Johnson to come back again and come back again and come back again and bring Ellen. Once Ellen has the opportunity, when she doesn't have a flag time, to come, because we want this kind of information exchange. We want people to hear the facts and make their own judgment. We want people to hear the story, the real story, and make their own judgment. And you, Kafuma, provided that opportunity. God bless you so much. And again, thank you so much. I will just close by asking the Honorable Josh to just go over that story once more, because sometimes people make the argument that adding government is the best, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, all of these things. Can you please make it clear for us, your listening audience, how you left Liberia? How did it happen? Please.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we took the measures as far as making sure the poorest people at the airport got paid, making sure that there were not ghost employees on the payroll, making sure that the gas station wasn't leaking gas, so to speak, making sure that the VIP lounge wasn't a point of great theft going on at the airport, we started to hear paying raising the salaries of the poor people, giving them Christmas bonuses. We started to hear that we were being plotted against. In the beginning, we assumed that we were being plotted against because of the measures that I've just mentioned. And so we determined that either we leave Liberia and come back to the U.S. with all the opportunities that God has blessed us with, or that we decide to mark this point in Liberia's history that two young people decided to do something that will remain stenciled for generations to come. Now, granted, we calculated the risks involved, our careers. God has blessed us tremendously. I just share one little testimony. There's so many more that I can share. Ellen Corkrum has equally the same. But we worked hard, both of us, 20 years plus to get to the point where we are, not only academically for many, many years with all the degrees, but then all the work experiences behind it. I have 4 children, 4 wonderful children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Ellen Corkrum herself has 2 of them. We both naturally have family and loved ones that we predicted all would be affected by whatever would happen to us. And so we calculated that this would be a great risk. But we realized that Liberia and Liberians are worth it, that if we have to be the sacrificial lamb, that even if we were caught while in the process of recording these people and killed, then to God be the glory. We set out to do something to set a mark in our history, to change the course of our history. So we made all those calculations, and so we set out to record these people. When we started recording them, our approach was rather simple. If we got word that, for instance, Brother Kafumba was saying we took 2 bags of rice, we would study Brother Kafumba, and as far as his movement, his activities, if it was clear that he was the type that parties, say, on Friday, then early Saturday morning at about 6:30, we would show up at his house. And we would knock on the door and wake him up, and we would say, Brother Kafumba, we just heard that Brother Sayon is accusing us of taking 2 bags of rice. This news is so distressing to us that we cannot sleep. Hence, we're here early this morning. You know the way we've been working. In fact, you've been telling us about our American work ethics and working 10-hour shifts and so forth. And then Brother Kafumba would say, oh, my goodness, I don't know why Brother Sayon is saying that, but y'all don't worry. I know y'all haven't done anything wrong. I would defend y'all when the time comes. By the way, let me tell you about Brother Sayon. He's such and such and such and such. And so that was basically our mode of operation, and those were the kind of responses we were getting. Then we thought about, well, why don't we approach Minister Samukai? He's the highest ranking security officer. He's connected to all the intelligence and things going on in the country. Now, as a footnote, I met Brani Samukai before this. I represented his son who lives here in the U.S. as a lawyer. Ellen Corkrum also knew him based on connections, military, etc. And so, yeah, he was a friend. And so we approached him not because we thought he was a part of the plotting against us, but we thought that he could shed some light on what was going on. Again, when we approached him, we were thinking the plotting had to do with the stance that we had taken there at the airport. To our surprise, Minister Samukai explained that he, the defense minister, had heard about what was going on, and he had investigated, meaning he had talked to the different people involved. He had questioned them, and every one of these people Amara Kone, Edward McLean, Judy Moore, Musa Ability, every one of these people told him that these two young people know they have not stolen a penny, have not done anything wrong, but we just feel that they will be in the way of our chupping, that there is $130 million coming to the airport to redo the whole airport, and if this girl, backed by this guy, can go around and do what they've been doing to the few thousands of dollars that is there, then certainly we would not have a chance at the $130 million, and so we have to get rid of them. This is what Samukai revealed to us. Now, frankly, I thought and I still think that it was somewhat cowardly of Minister Samukai to reveal this, be the Minister of Defense, having investigated people plotting against government people and doing nothing, but yet we were grateful for the revelation that he made. Then he said, why don't y'all go forth and openly request an investigation? That way, everybody can be exposed, the truth can come out, and an objective investigation can be held, and so that everybody would know that y'all didn't do anything. But don't mention my name, you know I'm here, I have to be here, and blah, 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 blah. With that directive and suggestion, I should say, from Samukai, we were headed for the president of Liberia to request an investigation. But before going to the president, we decided let's stop at Musa Ability, since he was the supervisor, so to speak. He was the chairman of the board. He was next in command. Let's be respectful of protocol and chain of command and talk to him first and officially ask for an investigation from Musa Ability. We did that. Musa Ability says, no, we cannot do no investigation. We cannot do no audit. This is a recording that is forthcoming. You were here. He says, if you do that, you will expose this government, you will embarrass this president, blah, blah, blah. The problem here is Amara Kone. He's the one falsifying all this stuff. He has all these different motives for doing this. I know the president closely. I will talk to her. Amara is the president's son, so he feels untouchable in Liberia. And so I will talk to the president and tell her she has to control her son, Amara Kone. And once the president does that, that is the only problem. Besides, my signature is on everything. Besides, as you know, nothing is approved without going through me. I review all the records. All is well. Don't worry. Let me talk to the president to control Amara. But please don't go requesting no investigation, no audit, because you will expose the government. We were determined to still go see the president, but again, we were following protocol. Long story short, and I'm purposefully skipping some parts because there are some recordings that will come out. Long story short, we get a tip that the government was yet releasing and leaking false stories to get rid of us, that the plotting had continued. And so we held a press conference in Liberia. At that press conference, we denounced the corruption openly. At that press conference, we released some of the recordings that we had. We played it there. The radio station name is Fabric Radio. That's where we held the press conference. And when we did that press conference, it did two things. Number one, it destroyed virtually any relationships we had with these government officials, because while they were clandestinely plotting and planning against us, we were man and woman enough to come on the air and challenge them and call them out for their corrupt practices.
That was in Liberia.
Yes, this was in Liberia, yes. Secondly, we played some of the recordings there on the radio, and that now alerted the government, the president, and the people we've been dealing with that we may have been recording. And so clearly, if you have been saying things illegal and you've been admitting to crimes and you didn't know, maybe you may have been recorded, and you have the power to capture and murder these people, thereby covering your crimes, you would likely do that. But frankly, we were not even thinking about that. We were caught up in the moment and everything that was going on. After the press conference, I stayed in the Sinclair area. Ellen Corkrum stayed at the airport. I would spend some time at the airport. We drove back to the airport to take Ellen Corkrum home. When we get there, the airport runs off of one generator. That generator provides power for the whole airport, the airfield, the houses, the environs, etc. Everywhere was lit except Ellen Corkrum's house. We get there, the house is dark, the water has been cut off, the security guard that is there that we're familiar with has been transferred somewhere unknown, and there's two guys that look like they just came out of the war yesterday. That was supposed to be the new, all of a sudden, abruptly reassigned security guards. We quickly went in. Ellen Corkrum got her IDs. We went into survival mode. She got her ID and sort of an overnight bag, and we left out of that area. On the way out, we contacted the chief of security to inquire of him. He echoed and made it very clear that the government officials had threatened him to do this, and he was sorry, but he was only trying to do his job, et cetera, et cetera. We leave Roberts Field. We head back to Monrovia trying to find a safe place where they had not cut out the light, the water, and the security guard so we can get a nice rest. And we get a call from Chris Massaquire. Chris Massaquire is somebody that I also have known for a while. His family is here in Georgia, and I've interacted with him over the years that I have been going back to Liberia. He called and essentially said, come over to my house. We need to talk right now. We went over to Chris Massaquire's house. He says, what is this stuff that I'm hearing, the press conference y'all had, what's going on, Melvin? Tell me what's going on. I said, Chris, you know, your government people, they're doing stuff. You don't have to take my word for it. Call the security guy at the airport. He'll tell you. On Chris Massaquire's recording, you hear him call the guy, and you hear the guy say exactly what I've just said, that he's been threatened and the government threatened and cut out the light and the water, and that shocks Chris Massaquire. He says something to the effect of, oh, my goodness, I can't believe they're doing this. This is not right. The government should not do this to these people. And then God turned his heart, and that's when he confessed to us that he had just come from a meeting sanctioned by the president, and via that meeting we were ordered to be captured. In essence, that the act was to be carried out against us, but he assured us that he wasn't going to do that. And long story short, he assisted for us to leave. I can't give the details, but I can tell you that within 3 hours of that conversation, we were smuggled from different vehicles all the way to Freetown across the borders. And from there, we were flown to London, and then we were flown back to the U.S. And so in a nutshell, that's what happened with the recording and how we left Liberia. And when I started by saying, praise the Lord, and God is good all the time, I really mean that God is good all the time, because who but Almighty God could have touched the heart of a man by the name of Chris Massaquire? Chris Massaquire is not somebody that has more allegiance to me. I didn't pay him. I didn't influence him. I didn't threaten him. Chris Massaquire has been running with this president for years. He has been one of her foot soldiers. He was ordered by his leader to do such an act. Who but God would touch the heart of such a person that he would first confess what the leader says to do, and then turn around and help you to escape what he knew was unjust? Who but God could have done that? And so in a nutshell, that's what happened, and to God be the glory. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, at this point, I will have to ask Judge Melvin Johnson. I think we've come to the 3-hour time mark. It's been a long discussion, but I also need to let you know that although predominantly follow-up caller, that's what it appears to me, unless they are clear up so we can see what other callers are waiting in the queue. But it's been 3 hours and 11 minutes. We still got some people waiting in the queue to either make follow-up call or a few new callers. So it's strictly up to you as per our arrangement for the show. If you want to go on for another half hour or so to address these callers, or if you want to call it at night, we can certainly take 1 or 2 questions and just call it a night, at least for this one. It's up to you. I just want to make sure you know that.
Thank you. I've been up since 2:00 this morning. This interview that I'm doing, we do these interviews internationally with international media with the time differences. So I am exhausted, but I will endure until 9:30 my time. I think that'll be 8:30 your time. I will ask that those who have not had a chance to ask the question, if they can make the question brief, then we can address so I can interact with as many people and get the truth out as much as possible. So we can do that, and we can do it up to 9:30, 8:30 your time. That would work for me, but I am exhausted.
All right, I can tell. Yeah, we'll do just that. As a matter of fact, there's been time when we're so short on time as we are right now. We can take probably 2 callers, per, 2 questions, 2 callers, per, answer, as opposed to 1 caller to an answer. Maybe we'll open 2 lines, and then you can go from there. That way we can get the number down quickly. But before I do anything else, let me see. Cecilia, your line is open. Welcome to the Liberian Diaspora Forum. You've been so quiet back there.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kafoma, for this show tonight. My name is Cecilia Hippie. I brought Josh Marvin on this show for him to explain his side to the Liberian people. And let the Liberian people know the corruption that's been going on in Liberia, even though we all know about the corruption. But we have heard the government side, and we just want to hear his side of the story. It's a pleasure to hear from him, and this opportunity that he's giving us tonight, I'm very grateful for it. The documents that I have in my possessions right now, I hope some of your callers can, text you documents for you to be able to send it to them, because this clearly shows that the corruption in Liberia, until we can go together and do something about it, our people are suffering in Liberia. And we need to help them out to get out of the suffering that they are going through over there. With no hospitals, no schools, no good roads. We don't even have electricity. We don't have water, but the money is just going out of the country. So, George Marvin, I thank you very much tonight for you to be on this show, and we brought you on this show for you to explain your side to the Liberian people, because we have heard a lot of things about you. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say. I don't have a question. That's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you. So new caller, 1 per answer, or a follow-up callers will take 2 at a time. It's the new caller here, and this is actually a very loyal, die-hard fan of the Diaspora Forum, a 2-time graduate of the University of Minnesota, both a bachelor's and master's degree in President of Kutumu Kamara of Minneapolis. Ms. Kamara, welcome to the Diaspora Forum. Your question for the judge.
Thank you so much.
I'm proud of your accomplishment, so at least I got to do that. I went to the graduation.
I know. Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Johnson, I really admire your courage, admire your faith, every time you speak about God. So, and it's really nice to hear another side of the story. But my point here is, as a lawyer, how are you going to deal with this from the international perspective? Are you going to just let your country, go because of this? What do you think can be done? Do you think it's possible to face trial in the United States or another place? Because I don't know the law. So this is my concern, because if I'm accused, I know you are kind of doing your work by getting it. What you're doing right now is part of it. People are getting to know. But you have, this is so important that you and your fiancé face trial, because there are certain things, it cannot just be in a loophole like that, people talking. So what do you think can be done? And I know we're not supposed to ask 2 questions, but I've been here almost for the entire 3 hours, so I think I should be awarded 1 more question I need to ask. And you said that
I love that.
Yeah, and you said that because we all know that they said, well, if you recall someone unknown to them, it's illegal. That's what I know. And now I'm hearing something different. I can't argue because you're a judge, you're a lawyer, and all that. So can you speak to that more? And you said that's not illegal to record. Because that's been my argument. But why would these people just record people unknown to them? That's illegal. I think they should do something about it. So can you speak to that? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me congratulate you and say that this is an example of what we're talking about in terms of what God can do and the talent and the abilities that Liberians have. The two-time graduate of University of Minnesota is refreshing to continue to hear stuff like this as I talk to our people around the country and around the world. So let me commend you and encourage you to go on and get that doctorate degree as well. Regarding what can be done with the trial, there's some things that are within my control and there's some things that are not. Obviously, the government of Liberia, what they do, how they do it is not within my control. They have the ability to come over here for extradition, which would then trigger a trial, a public trial here. They have the ability to have a trial in Liberia in absentia, which would then have a chance to bring the record and the truth to the public. The only thing that I can do that I know of at this point is what we've been doing, talking to our people, talking to the media in Europe, talking to the media in other parts of the world, exposing the truth, and building international alliances against what is going on against the poor people in Liberia. And so that's what I can do. Again, some things are within my control and some things are not. Those things that are within my control, we continue to pray God's strength and courage to do it. And by His grace, we continue to go forward and to do that. The second question, help me out, Mr. Host. What was the second question?
The second question is, it is our understanding that it's always illegal to recall people without their permission.
Right. Yeah. As much as I kind of want to break down the laws of evidence and the laws of Constitution, which are a whole year's course in law school, the only thing I can do is to just tell you that I know it's not illegal, but time would certainly not permit for me to break it down, explain the law of evidence and the constitutional law on this program, especially after we've been here 3 hours. So I'm sorry, I'm not evading the question, but it's somewhat complex. It's not something I can easily explain and have everybody understand in a short period.
Judge Melvin, basically, how do you compare your situation, and I mean with a specific reference to the recording portion of your situation to that of, is it Edwin Snowden, the NSA contractor who is now in Russia, who's wanted by the U.S. for exposing government secret, and obviously the Liberian government, even though the case is made about $269,000, but a lot of us know better. There's obviously a lot more anger directed at you based on the recordings that are coming out that have obviously exposed the government. So how do you compare those two situations?
I'm sure there's a myriad of comparisons as well as some things that are not in common, but respectfully, I just kind of want to keep it to the Liberian context and not draw the U.S. and their situation in. And I can say that, we're two Liberians that decided that we will be the sacrificial lamb for changing Liberia. And, God willing, that will happen. We believe that will happen, and we continue to press forward.
Okay. Thank you. Well, a whole lot of follow-up callers, so I'm going to take, just got 10 minutes left, actually. Should I say maybe 5 minutes because we need time for closing remarks. So, Judge Melvin, I'm going to take two questions at a time from two lines, and then after that you can address the two so we can get out of here. I need some time, the second time that we just came up with. So I'll start with 9533. Just one question quickly. Your last follow-up question. One quickly, please. 9533. Hello?
Yeah, thank you very much. George, I just want to ask you, since there's an extradition treaty between Liberia and the United States,
if Liberia asks for that and it's approved in this country, will you fight your extradition?
Okay, thank you. All right, let's take the next caller. Will you fight your extradition? Hold on to that. Let's take one more so we can hurry up and get out of here. 7867. Your follow-up question quickly. Just one.
Okay, Mr. Melvin, thank you very much. This is Musa Keita once more. First of all, I want to know what's your take on the media coverage in Liberia regarding the recording vis-a-vis the information that you're releasing, and most especially the running.
Thank you. We got it. One question. So, what's your take on the media coverage regarding your situation, and will you fight your extradition with the Liberian government to file in extradition? Those are the two questions from two follow-up callers. Can you address those two so we can take two more and get out of here?
Yeah, I will not. There's not legally such a thing as fighting extradition. There's more seeking justice and the truth, and that's what I'm doing, and that's what I will do. But in terms of fighting, that is technically not correct. But I will seek justice, and I will seek the truth, as I have been doing for many people over the years, and obviously I will do that for myself. And then the second caller. The
media coverage about your situation. What's your take? Yeah.
Actually, my brother Keita, as a man of faith, I have not really focused much on the media. The Word of God says that the hearts of kings are in the hand of Almighty God. He turns it whichever way He chooses. And so my prayer, my focus has really been on Him to say, Father, you know everything. You know the truth. Turn the heart of your people in the way that you want it to go. Let your will be done. In the beginning, it was much more trying. People were just ready to kill us because they had not heard from us. They had heard all these stories that were published by the government about all these awful things that we did. But I can tell you now that God has been faithful, that the people are hearing the truth, such as this forum, and thank you to this host in this forum. The truth is coming out, and the truth is coming out, and so now the people are hearing the truth, and they're asking questions to the government, and the government now is shutting down when they were talking a lot before. Now they don't want to talk anymore.
Okay. Two more callers. 2212, very quickly, your follow-up question. Just one question, follow-up. 2212, quickly. I believe this is OB.
Yeah, this is OB.
Your follow-up question quickly.
Yeah, George. I'm quite sure when you came to this forum, you didn't expect to come to a rose garden. But I just have a simple question. You are releasing the name of Chris Massaquoi, the guy who helped you to get out of Liberia. Don't you think you are jeopardizing his life or his job? Do you think why did you keep him anonymous?
Thank you. Let's take another one here. Why did you keep Chris anonymous? 1211 1211. Quickly, your follow-up question. 1211 Maryland. Hello? Awesome. I'm glad he's not there. All right. Now I'll switch that with a 1728. Quickly, your follow-up question. 1728. Quickly, one question.
Thank you. This is Manu Belete again, calling from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Right.
But Judge Melvin, I want to ask you, how could you believe Chris Massaquoi if he was the same person telling you, oh my God, how could they cut off your light, your electricity and water? And this is the same guy who had just attended a meeting to have you assassinated. So how can we believe you?
Thank you. How can we believe? All right, there you go.
How can they believe me or Chris Massaquoi?
Chris Massaquoi.
So the
hold on. I thought it was Chris Massaquoi. Let me have you clarify that. Milwaukee, how can we believe who?
I mean the both of them, because what is happening here is that this is the man who just came for a meeting.
Just clarify. So how can we believe?
No, give me a chance.
I'm out of time. Yeah. How can we believe the George Melvin or Chris Massaquoi?
How can we believe? First of all, you should have the second thought to say, is this guy saying the truth? Because you just told me, oh my God, how could they cut my light off and my electricity? How could they disconnect me? he said that. And this guy had just attended a meeting about assassinating you. So I just think he just making up something. So how can we believe him? And how they...
Okay. So I guess the question is that, well, you got the first question from Obi as to why did you keep Massaquoi anonymous? Why did you release his name? Because after all, he was trying to help you to get out. And then the second follow-up caller here is trying to imply that, well, how can you believe Massaquoi, who had just returned from having a meeting with the president, that has to do about, capturing you, allegedly, and then how could you believe him, going up to the assistance you got from him to leave Liberia?
Well, first of all, Chris Massaquoi should be hailed. He's a hero in my book in this situation. Anytime anybody is able to muster up the courage to stand up to the leader and to do the right thing in spite of what the leader has ordered, because they know in their heart of hearts that this is the right thing to do, I think he's a hero. We felt that we needed the world to know the whole story. We felt the world and Liberia needed to know the truth of the heart of this president that has the proclivity, that has the ability to go ahead and order young people with such potential that she should be welcoming, but to turn around and try to kill them. And we felt clearly that if we were just saying it with our mouths without the record and recording that we have, that people would think we're just saying it because we have been accused. And so we don't know of any other way to tell that story other than to play the recording. So the recordings have not been and not intended to jeopardize Chris Massaquoi, but the recording has been and continues to be to bring about liberation to our country. And the second point regarding Chris Massaquoi, I wish all of us would focus on the sovereignty of our nation and the future of our country, the prosperity of our people, not just the individual risks. Oftentimes when you study history, in order for a nation to move forward and prosper, sacrifices have to be made. And so, unfortunately, I understand Chris Massaquoi's position. I understand the caller's concern, but nation before individual. How can we believe Chris Massaquoi that he was telling the truth? We experienced the light being cut off. We experienced the chief of security at the airport telling us that, government officials came over there and threatened him. We experienced the water being cut off. We experienced the security guards being switched abruptly, and two guys looked like they just came out of one of those rebel camps, standing there talking about they're there to provide security for us. We heard the president, what she said in the recording that is forthcoming. We heard Musa Bility and what he said. We heard Brani Samuka and what he said, and others in their recordings that will be released. So putting all of these things together, looking at the totality of the circumstances, we felt clearly it all fitted together that Chris Massaquoi was telling the truth.
Okay. Judge Melvin Johnson, has been a wonderful night, at least if you ask me. So unless Sia or Cecilia, if you have anything or something else to add, otherwise, obviously, it appears that we could be here all night, which is not going to happen. So I'm just taking one more, and that's it for the night. And the way I want you to address that is after taking the one question, just making your closing remark. In the process, you can touch on whatever this last caller has to say. Sia, Cecilia, do you two have anything else to add, or just go ahead with that format? No, Sia line is closed. Sia line should be open. Cecilia?
For me, I think, it's kind of getting late, so I think he should go on with his closing remarks.
Okay. All right. No. Since this is a new caller, it'll be the one he will take along with his closing remarks. So let me close it. I don't know where he is, but it's getting a little noisy from his end there. 2127-2127, my last caller for the night. Your name, where you calling from, and your question. Quickly, just one question for Judge Melvin Johnson.
This is Mahmoud Momo calling from Maryland.
Follow-up caller, yeah. Hurry up, Mahmoud. So what's your follow-up question?
Judge Johnson, I know it's not easy, but you started at first. I like the way it says,
I may run to fight another day. But I would say, can we continue this fight and don't give it up? You still have faith. You have started the fight, and you're the only one can help us fight it. But there are ways to fight it. It's to engage the government. And can we engage the government? Can we organize that you say are lying? I mean, that we can make the government unpopular?
Thank you. Thank you. We'll leave it at Judge Melvin Johnson. Honorable Judge, once again, it's my pleasure to have you on here. So I will now return the floor to you for your closing remark. And in the process, if you want to touch on that last question, whether you can sustain the fight against a powerful government. Governments everywhere are powerful. We can't dispute that. So can you stand the fight with your closing remarks, sir?
Yes. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in this government. The same God who was faithful to have brought me to the U.S. when I wasn't supposed to have brought here because I come from a no-name family, the same God that was faithful to have fed me and sheltered me when I was homeless on these here streets in Atlanta, Georgia, the same God that was faithful to bring me through 10 years before I was able to obtain a green card in this country, going through and enduring so many things. The same God that miraculously took me through high school, the finishing high school here, and undergraduate and so forth, all the way to a doctorate degree. The same God that faithfully blessed me to become a judge and has sustained me in that position for going on 6 years. I believe, yes, he's faithful and just that whatever he starts, he's faithful and just enough to finish it. So, yes, I believe this fight can be sustained. I believe victory is assured. I believe it's just a matter of time. It is very clear to me, this is something that we didn't touch on, that this battle has just not been in the physical, but it's been in the spiritual. Those that know what I'm saying, those that have eyes, they will see. Those that have ears, they can hear what I'm saying. And so the battle is, the victory is assured, and I have no concern about the sustenance of the fight or us ultimately winning. By way of closing remarks, Brother Kafumba, I want to say thank you graciously. I want to say that history has witnessed and has recorded what you have done, creating an opportunity and being open and objective about it so that the issues pertaining to the prosperity and the future of our nation can be discussed openly, an opportunity for our people, even in Liberia, as you mentioned, and throughout scattered in Canada and throughout America to join in and discuss these issues and to be informed. I want to thank you. This is not something that I take lightly. This is something that history will remember you for. I want to thank the audience for participating and to encourage them to continue to call and participate in this forum on this radio station. This is what we need. Information brings, and information is light, and it takes away ignorances, and it takes away the darkness. That's what we need. I want to say thank you to everybody, to Sayon, to Sis Cecilia. Thank you to all of you. And let's continue to pray for Liberia. May God bless all of you. I love all of you. And may God bless Liberia as well. Thank you so much. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I want to thank the audience, each and everyone who came on tonight. I want to particularly thank those of you who participated. That's what the show is intended for. And as a way of reminder, do not forget, if you are interested in getting any of Judge Melvin Johnson's documents from Liberia, documents linking the government of Liberia to corruption, exposing the government corruption practices, by all means, please email the Word document to Liberian Diaspora Forum at yahoo.com. And as soon as Judge Melvin make those documents available to me, additional documents, if I may add, I will forward them to your various email addresses. And also, don't forget, next week Sunday, we have the Liberian writers and Liberian journalists coming on here to talk about the legacy of a fallen Liberian writer, Madam Musu Haidar. So I think that does it for tonight. It's been a great show, and thank you all.
Thank you for the careful. God bless.